Hello, good evening everyone, and a very warm welcome to another live stream with me, 320 Sim Pilot. I hope you're all doing very well, and it's finally here. I feel like we've been talking about this airplane for a fair old while. It's the FlyJSim Q4XP Dash 8 Q400 for XP11. We are in XP11 today, and this is a very, very high fidelity add-on. So it's one of the top levels, that we expect. And it is an aircraft which means a lot to me personally because it's what I used to fly. It's actually the first aircraft commercially that I flew, and it's really, really unique for there's a million reasons. For those of you who have seen, I did put up a video today, but if you're watching this stream, it's probably going to be slightly repeated. But when I was making the video, I realized how much there was about this airplane that I remember. Firstly, I remembered more than I expected, but it's just so it's so different, and there's just so many little tricks and gotchas and strange things. And I actually think it's a really nice looking airplane as well. The more time you spend with it, the more you sort of appreciate it. It does look a little bit like a mosquito with its dangly legs and so on, but it's got a really nice sort of aggressive pointy nose, that sort of de Havilland style nose at the front. And obviously it's the longest variant of the Dash 8 family. It's got two huge great engines and propellers, which we'll talk about. And in today's stream, we're going to fly it from here in Exeter on FlyJSim up to Edinburgh. But it might take us a little while because I'm going to just try and go through a few things on the airplane that I remember, and I'm sure things will pop into my mind. Likewise, I haven't flown this airplane for years, so I do apologize. If you're watching this and you fly this aircraft commercially now, I'm sorry. I know it's hard to watch someone make a mess of your aircraft on a stream, and I say now that I will make lots of mistakes. I'll forget obvious things that just aren't part of my normal routine now, whereas when you're flying the aircraft commercially, they are. Even if you've seen my video that I've already put out, I can prove that by immediately having an outburst and forgetting the autofiller. So there we go. I'm just going to jump into the chat and say hello, and then we're going to look at the outside of the airplane and, of course, the inside. So thanks for joining us. Duggan McTavish, thanks for coming and moderating over on Twitch. Really, really appreciate it, and I hope you're doing very well. Mike, good to see you here as well. And Lauren V25, who says, programming the UNS requires a lot of hope and frustration. Yeah, and I've totally forgotten how that thing works as well, so that's a whole new one for me. And Seabed, good to see you as well. Thanks for coming along and joining in today, as well as Corsi, who's asking to go from Brickman's Park to Welling. How do I program it? We'll see. That the UNS, when you learn an airplane, you learn so much about it. And it sounds like an excuse, and it is really, but you learn so much about an airplane when you first... when you fly it, and then if you try and keep that in your head and learn another one, it doesn't really work, so you do end up losing quite a lot, sadly. But you remember the more novel things, or the things that didn't quite copy over, so you didn't need to replace them in your mind. And Vex Freeze, good to see you as well. Over on YouTube, my chat hasn't loaded up. That's not good, so I apologize for now if I'm missing anything on YouTube. What's going on there? Hold on, let me just... Yeah, no, it is working. So I'll jump into the chat, but I'm running way behind. So I apologize because my chat's for some reason not loading up in the past. So AC455, thanks for coming and moderating. Richard V as well, thank you for coming and moderating. Alpha Bravo 281, good to see you. Paul, I hope you're doing well. I'm glad you've been just bought VFR charts. I wanted to learn how to read them, got inspired here. Excellent, that's great to hear, Paul. John Padfield, I hope you're doing very well. Jamlen and Dougal, we've already said. Shwig44, loads of people. Chris Patton, and I apologise. I've missed loads. I don't know what's going on with my my stream software. Yes, Papa, I hope you're doing well. Eels 1880, good to see you. Right, Sean says I use the Reg Golf Jersey. Juliet Echo Charlie Echo on Microsoft Flight Simulator, as I know that was one of the regs for Flyby Dash 8 that I've seen at Glasgow. Very good. There you go. Right, let's jump into it. And again, sorry for the chat mess there. Thanks for those follows, people who've followed along. Right, so this is the aircraft. It's about 30 tons at its absolute maximum takeoff weight. It's very light for its size. Obviously a 320, which is not, it's not twice the size of 320, but it is over twice the weight. So it just shows you the airplanes sort of work like that. They don't get infinitely bigger, but their weight goes up a lot more than you'd think. I do a bit of a walk around on the video I've put up, but we'll have a look at it today. This door is this is the FlyJSim. So let's also, of course, talk about it in the sense of this is a new expensive payware add-on, because it's sitting in the higher price range, but you can see why they've not missed anything. So the door, this is the door handle. You push it and then just pull that down and lift it up, and then there's a little handle here that you would grip and heave it down. and it was sort of like gravity assisted, but down it goes. And they've just got it perfect. The animations, the fact it's slower at the start, and so on. That they've really not missed anything with that, which is as you'd expect, really good. The liveries are also very nice. Angle of attack indicator. Sensor, pitot tubes. This is an ice detector. So you've got loads and loads, and it's all here. And if you zoom right in, you can read it all. This is the nose gear down lock. So that is used if the plane isn't pressurized and you want to pull it around by the nose gear, because unusually the nose gear, well, actually not unusually, but it does fold forward, and it could obviously collapse if you did that wrong. Now, I wanted to open these in my video, and someone said that you could, but I haven't been able to make it happen. Well, you can open there you go, you can lock the nose gear. Very good. Yeah, not many people know about that, and especially pushback crews don't know about it unless they're very used to this aircraft. You've also got the port for plugging in the headset, and the ground power plugs in there as well. So I'm using the wrong sort of camera. Let me jump to the flight deck. Let me just steal the flight deck camera. There we go. It's a bit slower, but easier to use. When you're getting towed after manual gear extension 2, says Eels. There you go. That's what it'd be used for if the nose gear's broken. Sorry, the main landing gear system's broken. So that's quite rare, and yeah, good luck trying to explain that to the ground crew when they don't know what it is. This behind here, you've got the batteries. Oh, there we go. I can hear something. No, I can't make it work. But apparently you can. Yeah, batteries behind here. You see some pilots on their walk around opening that and inspecting inside if they feel like it. Some more circuit breakers, and obviously the avionics bay as well. John Padfield, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. And Pete White said I flew this very aircraft from Hotel India to Jersey. That's Southampton to Jersey back in 2001. Yeah, you may well have. G Jedi. It was a famous one. They did a big Star Wars party when it launched, obviously for the the Jedi name. Nose gear, the modelling is just crazy. Look at it, the texturing, the details, all the little vents, and it is quite a grubby aircraft, which is pretty much accurate to the real ones. They need a lot of cleaning. Nose gear, all very low down, but the taxi lights are fitted to that nose gear strut, so points where it's going, which is nice. But just look at the detailing, the stickers, everything is just so good on this. Chris047, good to see you. And I think I saw that Matteo is going to watch along later, but currently at work, so hope to see you later, Matteo. Thanks for the message. Oh, someone's parked on top of us. I feel like I can see some more wheels. Looks like another Dash 8. That's going to slightly confuse our walk around, but there we go. Much of the same on the other side, but this is a cargo hold that is only used. You can see straight through, but in the real aircraft, this was sort of not used for anything. You know, it's like a bit of an actual cargo hold. You shouldn't be able to get to it in flight, but you'd store the prop covers and so on, because these propellers would obviously blow around if it was windy. So we had to actually fit these massive, great straps to them to hold them still, and then clip that onto the landing gear. That's quite a fun technique, and you'd only ever have to do that if it was windy. So obviously the weather's horrible, and you're standing there trying to wrestle with those. And there were intake blanks as well that block up the engine intakes, which is quite hard work, especially in really, really bad weather. As we go up here, we've got the ice guard. So this is looks really fancy, but it's not. It's just extra protection for the fuselage, because ice might ping off the propeller and dent it. Funny that there isn't anything over the windows. Don't ask me why. I'm sure it's all tested and checked. But yeah, so that's what that's there for. So in icing conditions, you could occasionally hear some thuds if ice was breaking off the propellers, especially at the tips, or when you turned them on if it had built up. So it's flying off. They've really sorted out the texturing on the propeller hubs and so on really well. It just looks amazing, and it looks spot on. It's also this matte black texture. And a little detailing on it. So again, I don't know how they've done it. It's really, really impressive, and every angle looks spot on. So these propellers are free turning. So this sits and is connected to a turbine. This is a jet engine in here. That's the main intake. The intake goes vertically in there, which is very odd, or sort of half vertically. So it's all sitting at strange angles compared to what we're used to. I wonder how much we can see, because you could see the intake fan. Yeah, there you go. The fan's up there. They've actually put the decal. I like that. So that would be in there, and these propellers get turned by that jet engine blasting over a little turbine at the back that's connected to this propeller. So it's effectively a free turbine, meaning you could spin it on the ground. It's just not really connected to anything. It only works when air's flowing over it, pretty much like the front fan on a jet engine as we're used to. I can't remember. Eels1880 might be able to help me out here. What's this for? This is an intake and exhaust. Is it for the generator? I think it's a cooler for the integrated drive generator, so that gives you the electrics and is also used to start the engine. I think that's what they're for. I can't remember. Wing inspection lights and so on. Landing lights and flare lights are up there. De-icing boots along the front. You'll notice we don't get the nice shiny wings that we have on 320s and other jet aircraft. The reason is, I don't know, because these engines are they are very powerful. One of the really good things about the Dash 8 is how powerful it is. So it's it also sounds reasonable, yeah. So it's overpowered. You can get more than you need out of it. The engines were heavily derated, and you never struggled. Its maximum cruising altitude depended. It was either flight level 250 or flight level 270. But either way, no matter how hot and heavy you were, the airplane would go up there no problem. A jet, we have to limit it a little bit more when we're heavy. So this is the not normal for a turboprop. But what we have here is a turboprop that was that powerful that it could probably have had a heated wing, but it didn't, because obviously the smaller Dash 8s didn't. So you had this boot. So this has little inflatable ridges, and you can see it. Again, unbelievable modeling work by the FlyJSim team, because it looks incredible. And these actually inflate. So we're going to definitely look at that later. Do remind me. 250 versus 270 was a cabin pressure mod option. Yeah, so the reason for the different flight levels, flight level 250 was the limit if you didn't have oxygen for the passengers. If you did have oxygen, drop down for the passengers in the cabin. So, you know, those masks that come out in your safety briefings. If you have that fitted, then you could take it up to 270. Probably not worth paying for and carrying all that weight around just for the sake of 2,000 feet, but there you go. Some airlines will choose to do it for their own reasons. And yeah, so these inflate and break off the ice. So it actually leaves it to let the ice build up and then breaks it off. It's not heated electrically. The propellers have this sort of strip on the front. This was electric though. This didn't inflate. This was electric and actually heated up. This intake here was a boot, so that would inflate and break it off. So loads and loads of different de-icing systems on the aircraft. It's quite strange really for that. But there we go. So that's one of the parts of the aircraft that was, you know, the boot system is not I would say it's more mechanical than obviously just heating up the wing, so there's more chance of failure, put it that way. Slats and flaps are all modelled nicely, lots of streaking, unbelievable texturing. The landing gear, famous landing gear on a Dash 8, but quite small, quite normal, very similar to the Airbus. You wouldn't really notice the difference. The two sort of hydraulic cables that go down to the brakes, the oleo. Thanks for those follows, Solid Wings and Sleepy and Airliners Live, Max Fire Pilot, good to see you all, thanks for joining us. Yeah, landing gear quite normal. This is the rear gear door, so this is what opens up, and you could open it to have a look inside if you felt really keen. But there we go, refueling panel. No, stay open, please. No. Well, anyway, that's where the fueler would connect, and you could set up that panel. And you did really need to know how to do it, but it was quite hard. There's a little gauge up there which I can't remember what it was, and I've forgotten as I do in my stream. My video. Anyway, as we go to the tail, massive great T-tail, more de-icing boots on the leading edge of this. It's really, really quite cool, quite a cool design, and that's one of my favourite things of flying this, was having a great big T-tail. Not many aircraft do, especially not civilian. But yeah, nothing too much to say about it. It's got a massively powerful rudder. So the rudder we don't use much on a jet aircraft. There's only one case you use it really, which is landing in the crosswind and if an engine fails. Pretty much the same on the Dash 8. You have to change the trim a bit, which we'll talk about because of the engines and the way they turn. But this rudder is double jointed. You've got the first panel and then the second panel, which turns even more. It's hydraulic as well. The elevator and rudder are hydraulic, but the ailerons are just mechanical. But this rudder was hugely powerful because these propellers are huge and they also push air over the wing. So if one of these failed, you had a huge discrepancy in thrust and lift on one side of the airplane. So you needed a massive rudder to sort it out. APU, exhaust, all fine, all very normal. Not as reliable, I would say, as the Airbus in my experience. That's not to say anything about the actual aircraft or the statistics. That's just my opinion on it from what I've seen. But I could be misguided. Cargo door, main cargo hold at the back of the aircraft. Bit of a technique to that handle, but there it goes. I love the scratching and marks in here. And just to sort of stress how good the FlyJSim model is, you've got all these rivets at the back where, as far as I can tell, and I don't know for sure, but it seemed to be that these were for if, you know, you have to pay extra to have smooth rivets along the front of the airplane, but at the back it maybe doesn't make so much a difference. So you've got this sort of larger sticking out rivets. I don't know, it makes the back look really reinforced, but I don't know if it's any different. This is the ram air inlet, so if you weren't pressurizing the aircraft from the engines, you could let fresh air go through there and then it would actually flow out the front by the cockpit. But yeah, so much more of the same on the other side. I am pretty much doing what's in the video if you've seen that. So we will get on with some more stuff, I promise. And I'll try and answer some questions. What are those panels for sticking out of the fuselage under the window at the back? Just increase aerodynamics, just FlyJSim guy. Absolutely. So you've got these sort of vanes that stick out. This will just be for some particular scenario, maybe landing, maybe engine failures. The test pilots or whoever was designing on a computer thought it needed this to help it. What exactly they do, I couldn't tell you, but they are there, and that's all they do. They're just sort of aerodynamic additions to help out with the airplane. Horsewell says, Exeter Airport, I'm sat in the office at work at the moment, about 2 miles from the end of runway 08. There we go. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring Flyby back for a little bit, although I believe it may be on the way back anyway. Let's see. Simon C says, after having watched your first look video, I'm really looking forward to this stream. Excellent. Yeah. Bobby Fuzzy, good to see you. I hope you're doing very well. Ricardo as well, good to have you here. Battle Metal Chris says, the few times I've been on the Q400 there were 2 loud bangs that left the ground and the earlier strut extended. Yeah, and that sound is modeled in this. It's absolutely amazing what they've done with the sound effects, which we'll talk about as well. Just scrolling through. Lauren V says, how come props still use boots rather than the heating? It seems like it would break more. Yeah, and while 3 bits of ice aren't as much of a problem as a turboprop as a jet, it's still not a problem to have FOD flying about. No, absolutely. It's just weaker engines. It's a bit of an easier system to use because it doesn't take as much off them. But I'm guessing the Dash 8 could have had a heated wing, but it's a whole redesign. However, I don't know for sure. That's a familiar cabin, says CJ. There you go. Yeah, it is. If they fail, they'll automatically revert to deflector mode. Yeah, that's true enough on the boots. Yeah, as far as I remember anyway. For trim on the TCA, I use the one of the buttons on the back and the one above the trigger for forward trim. Right, the cabins, all excellent. FlyJSim are very good at this. Their 737-200 is the same. It's unbelievable. You can even open the lockers, which is just crazy. Rear galley, all looking good. No toilet at the back for us to inspect, but there is a... Is that the cargo hold I'm pressing? Not sure. Yeah, you can do all the window blinds. I don't think all Dash 8s had window blinds, funnily enough. I think that may have been an option, because I'm pretty sure I flew some that didn't. Daniel, thanks for your subscription. Rick, thanks for the follow. Okay, we're going to zoom down now. It's not as wide as an Airbus, obviously, 2 and 2, and they were smaller seats than on an Airbus as well. Emergency exit here, which we obviously don't use routinely, you'd hope. The toilets does flush. We'll look at that later when we're powered up. If I could get in. There we go. But yeah, just ridiculous levels of modelling. Can't do the water in the sink, though. There you go. We found something. Anyway, close that up. Let's get onto the flight deck. Incredible job here. Texturing and stuff is amazing. So these, worn out marks you've got here. This will be from the feet, obviously, that you'd rest up there because there weren't many places to rest your feet. You'll notice as well, compared to the Airbus, it's just tiny. These seats don't maneuver sideways, so getting in and out was a bit of an art form. You had to sort of swing your legs over this center console without damaging anything. Also, a lot of systems had to be tested separately, so you all know how much I enjoy an automated aeroplane or a switch that says auto on it. You'll notice there aren't too many of those in the Dash. It takes a lot of testing and manual intervention, shall I say, for a lot of the systems. But there we go. Right, let me jump in to the the checklists. They provide checklists on this sort of iPad, which is great, and this is how they usually are, the RAM mounts on the Dash. But Strick says literally unflyable. Yeah, I am using the TCA quadrant today. So checklists are good, but the originating before start isn't really going to get you powered up. You do have the option in the settings to change it. So engine off state, when you load up X-Plane, you can have it long turn, short turn. So this is, again, the level of detail they've gone to is really impressive. So this is what I've gone for. I'm not sure what your role does, except change where you have the extra little display, which shows us your levers and prop levers, which is something we'll talk about later on. So there we go. So I'm going to firstly load up the airplane. We are on VATSIM. We do have a filed flight plan, but I'm going to select the load. And let's see if we can get this right just before we start powering on the airplane. So total passengers, I had 70 I wanted. It can take up to 78, but we're going to go with 70. 5.4 tons. And how much cargo hold should we have? Let me just bring it up. And we want EGTE. Okay, so I want to get a zero fuel of 25 tons, which I'm pretty sure is close. Oh, no, maximum 26,308. There you go. So what I need to do is, where is the zero fuel written? There we go. We're currently at 25,175. So that's about right, actually, with 71 passengers. So that'll do. Not sure what this option does. Maybe adjust the loading. So then we're going to go to load total fuel, sorry. Yeah, we need a fuel figure of barely anything, 3.2, just crazy. So I'm going to put 3.2, and then I'm going to up it a little bit. Let's add another 400, just in case that's wrong. 3.6, there we go. Load summary. Temperature at sea level, I think it's 15, might be a bit colder anyway, but there we go. Plenty of fuel, landing at 890. Confirm, and start loading. And now it does a load. You can do a fast load as well. But while it's doing that, and hopefully they'll start boarding and we'll start hearing some noise from them, we're going to move along. Yeah, I'll talk about, oh, there you go. The 294 was Eddie to Manchester, says Eels. I didn't realise that. The number was just sequential. Our last flight was Manza 293, so I just followed it along. 3.2, I'd be lucky to get off the ground with that little fuel in a 340. Yeah, indeed, it's crazy. It just doesn't burn it. There are 2 Q400 flight sims happening right now, says Michael R. Murphy. Oh, there you go. Is there another one running somewhere? Where's the dust, food, and paintbrushes? Yeah, I haven't seen any. So powering it up is a memory thing for me because I don't have the checklist, but I'm going to run through it. I'm going to forget loads of things, and again, I apologize if you do operate this aircraft. The party piece of the Dash 8 is that its batteries are enough for it to power up, load up, set up, and then start the engines. You don't actually need a ground power unit. When you turn these batteries on, they're just connected, they can charge, but you'll see nothing happens because lo and behold, clunk, the battery master is where it starts to come to life. You guys let me know how the audio is or isn't, if it's the right volume, and hopefully it'll work. How much does it cost? I forget now. I think, was this around $80? But I'm sure someone in the chat will know exactly how much it is. Right, so the master warnings come on, and that's now a theme of FlyJSim Guy. Thanks for following, and Chewy is me as well. And Daniel, thanks for your subscription if I didn't say. So theme of this aircraft is the, yeah, $80, perfect. Right, theme of this aircraft is that the warnings that you heard there are going to keep coming because it doesn't have any real sense of what it's doing. It's not got flight phases like the Airbus or inhibits, so it will just keep dinging and dinging. Here's another great detail that you can adjust the rudder pedals, really like that. But anyway, I'm going to actually turn on the ground power, so let's connect a GPU up. And you guys tell me if it's too loud. So the batteries are all on. Main bus tie is on, which connects both sides. Why you have to switch this around, I don't know. But we'll put the external power on, and now we'll turn on the screens. Otherwise, those batteries would just be draining away. And I'm pretty sure we used to like try to save. Oh, not that one. Try to save the batteries by not turning everything on. But there we go. So both. So these are called ArcDo's. These are amazing. One of my favorite things about the Dash. I talk about them even today. They are so powerful. You can select both sides. You can, because if you have it set to on, it just controls its own side. If you have it set to both, you can control the other side as well, which is really useful. So you've got 1 and 2, and you can transmit. You can choose which channel you're transmitting on. You can listen to any of the channels, which you can select up there, which you can see by clicking it, and then you get the green. So I'm listening to VHF2 and VHF1 at the moment. It's just brilliant. Really, really good. Yeah, the screen flicker as it powers up. Absolutely. So there you go. We've got the screens on. Let's just brighten them up. And what I'll do is I'll look over here. This is usually left. The FO side would be left with the status electrical page, DC external power on. And that's normal. That's what you want. So to control what you're seeing on those screens, again, this is just proving that this airplane doesn't have the phases in the same sense. The Airbus automatically shows you what status screen it thinks you want. The Dash 8 doesn't. So what it's got is the electrical on this MFD. That's controlled down here. We have our switches. And again, they've modeled this perfectly. So I could set that to nav, and that's more what we're used to, right? We've got 2 nav displays. But what we want is obviously systems on the ground. So if I put that to systems, it defaults to the electrical page. Even if I change it, let's put it to fuel. So we had it on the fuel page now. You see it's different. If I change it to back to that and then put it to systems, defaults to electric. So the most common thing you'll see on the ground was to have a system page selected for the captain. Then you press doors because you're going to see which ones are open. And then you select the systems page for the FO. And it wouldn't change the other one. And that was the only way you could get 2 different systems stirring. So now we could see these. And you can actually cycle through them if you press all. And they'll go out of sequence, so you can have a few combinations. Anyway, this is absolute trivia. It really doesn't matter, but I'm having fun reliving things that I used to do every day. Right, that's all on. External power's on, and the ice protection panel we'll talk about once we've powered up, but this should be in off. We'll talk about these little intake things in flight. Ref speeds off, certainly. Pitot static off, boot air to normal. Windshield heat off. I think that would go to norm at some point. Well, I'm sure it would. But there we go, that's off. Funnily enough, that's the front windscreens and this screen. that right screen over there was not heated for the FO. Exterior lights all off. Cabin altitudes is left alone. Flight recorder, etc. You can do the engine fire test. So we're talking about tests. There's a million tests we can do on this. So I will show you a few of them. We can do the engine test. Now, if I can remember, you press this, and you see it does the fuel valve, and it closes it because it's closed. I'm pretty sure, I have a funny feeling, if you press this while the APU is running, it will shut down. So you have to test this before you power it up, certainly, although you should do that anyway, even in the Airbus. But yeah, Dougal says, watching these birds land in a strong crosswind is amazing. Yeah, they have a slower approach speed, so they are very blown around by the winds. But they are very controllable because they have very good power. Mark S says, sound like being the first officer on this thing is like the naughty step and the only daddy gets all the toys. Yeah, there's a few things like that in its design. But there we go. So engine fire test, all normal. All good. Then we've got the baggage. So you test system 1, which arms that bottle. System 2 arms the half bottle. Forward baggage arms. You know, they've done it all. It's all here. I'm going to put the storm and dome light on just because it's often useful on the stream. APU then, let's power it up. So we press power. We've done the fire test. It does a little bite where it runs through everything, and then we press start, and off it goes. Engine start switches would be a norm. Start switch in the middle, select switch in the middle. Landing altitude, well, it's basically sea level. So I'm just going to come down here, set it to 2,000 feet. As ever, these are incredibly precise, so basically you don't need to change it, but make sure it is definitely in auto. That is important. Kidder Country, thanks for following, and Antonio, thanks for your subscription. And you want this closed. This will be the forward outflow valve. You don't want to be fiddling with that. And this is the manual pressurization. Really complicated, much harder than the Airbus, and this is the incredibly hard switch to use, and I have had to use it. It is a thing. Position lights can come on. We'll leave everything else. Tail logo light, that's a fancy option. We'll put that there. Arm emergency lights. Seatbelts on, no smoking on. Have we got our fuel on boards? Yep. That'll be, what's that? We've got about 3.2. No, not quite actually. So we'll leave the seatbelt signs off until we are ready to go. And then we can test all the caution advisory lights. Test and test. Caution lights obviously being this CWP, which we'll talk about later, maybe once we're underway. Set it all to bright. Reset fan I'm going to have on just to get some air flowing around the cabin, but bleeds will be off for now. AC control generators on. We don't normally turn those on or off. So it's funny this, you have to turn the generator online. It won't do it automatically. And you'll see there, it's going to sit there. So I've clicked it on, and now we can get rid of the external power. And it swaps over onto that, and the GPU available is gone. So I can tell them to disconnect GPU, make it a bit quieter, get rid of these warnings that have been going constantly in the background. So that's the overhead panel pretty much set up. It's straightforward. There's not too many systems. The ADIR sort of system, the IRs are pretty automatic, just done up here. They'd already been done in the backgrounds. You didn't really have to interfere with them too much. We'll turn on the two universal units, UNS. And up they go. Fuel control, we'll leave in the middle. This is the transfer. Also, the Dash has one of the best fuel transfer systems. You can send fuel between the two tanks. You can't actually do that on the Airbus, and you can do it in a very easy and intuitive way with this. It's very good. Engine control, we'll talk about this as we get going, but leave it as it is. Propeller auto feather off. This is the standby comm, so I'm going to leave that off because we're going to use the ARC-do. Now, something else you're going to do is you're going to disconnect this. I'm pretty sure you had to disconnect it, and then we're going to run all the trimmers. So you would run the trimmer all the way to the right, and you'd run the rudder trim all the way, and you'd have to do it all right, all left, and same with the pitch trim. So this was a little bit time consuming, you could say. I'm not going to do it all now just because it would take a while, but yeah, there was a way you could do that with you could do them all at once if you had all your hands in the right place. But there we go. So that's the aileron trimmer in neutral, rudder trim in neutral for takeoff, and the pitch trim in the takeoff bands, but you would run it all the way forward, all the way backwards. I think that's it. Weather radar's off. It's not operating at the moment in this simulation. ARC-dos are pretty much set up just on guard for now. Then you'd be checking that things like this, and this does actually open, which is amazing. This is like the landing gear alternate extension. By lifting this up, you cut off the hydraulics to it and so on, so I'm not going to fiddle around too much. Little storage compartment. Oh, look at that, with some coffee cups in it. They don't miss anything, even the way it falls back down. That's got sharp edges, so not much fun to catch your hand in. And this is the overhead alternate landing gear. This is another part of that process. I'm not going to fit around too much with that because it might break it. And this is the overhead hatch. So they've even modeled that. You can do that and then click on it and it falls out. It's completely free, so it would just fall out. You have to be very careful not to have it just collapse onto your head. But yeah, that's it. That's your escape hatch. There's no opening windows on the Q400. You had to go out the top if you needed to. And you wouldn't do this for fun because it's really hard to reconnect it back in. Yeah, thank you all for coming along on Twitch. Mike James, thanks so much for your £20 super chat. I really, really appreciate it. That's very kind, Mike. I don't know what to say. That's far too generous. And Mike says, I relish watching your videos as I always learn lots of new things. Thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge. You're incredibly welcome, Mike. Thanks so much. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah, that's really, really so generous. And I'm glad you've been enjoying the videos. It's always very nice to hear. And thanks for supporting the channel. Really, really appreciate it. Oh, we got lots of aircraft have appeared here. Maybe we'll get a controller soon. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Mike. That's very kind. And Hype Gareth, thanks for your follow. So the doors and so on are pretty automatic now. I think that sounds like one of them's closed up. Yeah, they've all closed up, so we must be loaded. So let's jump back into our seat. Instead of fiddling with the doors and so on, let's start our mission on this. So we're going to accept that. Now, there's no scratch pad on this. Obviously, the date, you'd make sure it was in date. It is... it's called the Universal, just because it's written up there. It's so different to the Airbus. Oh, look at that. It's automatically called it's finished, so it's called back the better pushback. How funny. How funny. Very good. Yeah, sorry to everyone watching this, or anyone flying along. This is taking a bit of time. Harry is considering buying X-Plane just for this aircraft. Well, if you like this airplane, but that's quite an expensive way to do it, certainly. You've got to buy the sim as well. Could you sim hold? Yeah, you can hold. Yeah. This is X-Plane default scenery for Exeter, if you're wondering, but we have Orbex for Edinburgh. Right. Thank you again to Mike for that very kind donation. So let all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect. Let us see what the message is by pressing message. Database expired. Okay, not too concerned. So I don't remember my flow for going through this. I'm sure there was a flow or an acronym or something, and nearly always is. But what we're going to do is go to flight plan, and it knows. Yeah, we won't do that just yet. So we've got Exeter, and we're going to fly up the road to Echo. And I've immediately done it. I have to select where I want to type and then type it. Echo Golf Papa Hotel. We're going to Edinburgh and then enter. That's Edinburgh Airport. Makes sense. And accept by clicking here. Good. Now we go to menu. We're going to click depart, and we're departing from. Let's just check the weather. So we'll go to our Avi tab. So this is going to be a strange part, and it's gonna really probably give me a headache trying to do it. 3303. So which runway would we use? That's ever so slightly going to be runway 26. So we're going to go for runway 2. Right, and this is where it gets weird, of course. So we actually type in 2 because we want runway 26, not 1 or not 08, just 2. Enter. There's no SIDs loaded in here, so that's it. And then we go to flight plan. It's got no link. It doesn't know where it's going. I should have probably chosen someone with a SID. So let's bring up the tablet and just check the charts for Exeter. So airport charts. I would have had more ready, but I was struggling a bit today to get the sim to load. I had to update it. But we're on stand 2. We're going to taxi out takeoff from runway 26. And if we go to the airport info, departures from runway 26. No, that's not the right one. What am I doing? Where's it gone? Airport briefing, Jen. There we go. Just lots of noise abatement. Oh, is that going to be something? No worries, too easy for spawning on us. No problem at all. Here's all the parking information. That's not so useful. What's going to be more useful is arrival departures, noise abatement for arrival, not interested, departure, noise abatement, runway 26, climb a runway heading, maximum rate, safely to 1,000 feet above the aerodrome, and then turn as soon as possible to avoid overflying the city. So climb to 1,000 feet and then go. That's fine, not too hard. But we want to go via Exmoor. So what I'm going to do, instead of no link, I'm just going to put in, I think you could put in 1,000 foot. No, talking nonsense. I'm going to put in Exmoor. Maybe I'll put it in here. No, let's put it in here. See, I practiced this with a SID to make sure I can remember how to do that. Exmoor point, there we go. Oh, and it's activated already, but that's fine. So we'll go direct to Exmoor, and then from Exmoor, I want to go to list, and then I want the airway. Look at that. You've got plain language is what that stands for, I think. But we want airways. No, so it must be this one. So plain language airways. No, that's not it. Gap, no, that's not it. How on earth did we get the airways up? List, departure arrival, nope. Yeah, see, it's so different. And info, nope. Menu, no, we did that already. List. Why is that not what I'm expecting? That's a whole list of VORs. None of that's any good. Plain language gives you the whole name of the VOR, which is no good. And Airways just isn't selectable. So Exmoor, I'm not sure. Had the same as list and air. Yeah, so it's not. It should be selectable here, Airways. You can definitely do it in the red aircraft. I wonder why I've missed this. Ariel F, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. It's been a while. R2, yeah, so right 2. So I'm pressing it. It's not loading up. So let's put in the next point, which is going to be Knighton anyway. So let's do that. Also, I want to delete that gap. So I can click on it, delete. Exmoor, good. And in here, we are going to put Knighton. So just remember, you've got to select where you're typing first. Because if you just type, nothing appears at the bottom. Let's try again. Hold on. List. There it is. That's why. Right. I remember now. You can't select the waypoint. You've got to select the point you're going to. So I've got a gap, no link. Then I go to list airways. So from Knighton. Okay, good. Let's go back. Let's delete that. I did this every day for years. And it just disappeared out of my head. So Exmoor is no good. We click here. We go list. Plain language. No, we want airways. Exmoor. And then we're taking the November 864. Airway number 3. You see, we can't type in the name. We type in number 3. Enter. And then we're going to leave that at Knighton, which is not going to appear now. Don't do this to me. Knighton, number 6. Enter. Then there's no link. So once again, that's to Knighton. Then we go list. Airways. Papa 17. So number 2. That really messes with your head. We're going to knock in number 4 and enter. But you can do it in one go. It's quite easy actually because you just go back to list. So I'm quite liking it. I don't remember disliking it, so it can't be that bad. And then we go to 2. Thanks for those new follows on Twitch. Really appreciate it. I hope you're doing well. Then we go to knock in. Papa 16, number 2. Enter to Ribble, number 3. Oh, this is going far too well. I'm sure at some point I'll accidentally delete it. Finally then list airway, November 601 to InPip. So there you go. If anyone was watching and struggling like me, that should hopefully help. So if we go back, you can see, nope, didn't work. You can see now the whole route. And now we go menu, arrive. We're going to land, expecting to land. It said runway 06. We'll check that when we get up there via the InPip arrival. Number 3, no transition. And we're going to fly the ILS 06, number 1. Enter. So you see it starts to make sense, and we don't want a transition of any of those. That's the flight plan done then. So Exeter to Exmoor. I hope you're doing well in the chat. And I'm sorry it's taking so long, but yeah, we're just going to go through it. You click the empty slot in the plan. Thank you very much, Airline is live. There you go. Yeah, something's just disappeared out of my head. But I'm glad we got there. Right. So yeah, it's not a bad way. I agree. Igloo says that's kind of a cool way to enter the route. Yeah, it's pretty neat. The Airbus MCDU for loading the airways is one of the things that I constantly find I prefer in other aircraft. And then you got some of the altitude flight levels it expects to be. Good, that's the flight plan done. Performance, I don't remember doing much in there. We've done data. Nav, not too interested in right now. Not doing a direct to, not filling with that anymore. Fuel, so here we go. Let's put the weights in because it is quite important. So we've got the basic. Then we go here. We've got 71 passengers now. So remember, select what you want and then type in 71. Enter. Gives us a reasonable weight. Cargo. Our cargo weight is... Where do they write it? It's not on that screen anymore. There was a summary. Cargo 884. So select 884. Enter. Gives a 0 fuel weight 25,928. And we had a 0 fuel weight of... It's not written up on there. Sure, I missed it. That sounds quite heavy. 25,928. But we said it was about 26, so we're pretty much at the maximum weight. I'm quite surprised. But there we go. Alternate is going to be... Oh, no. Ignore that. Ignore that. How do I get rid of that? Back. There we go. Alternate fuel. I think this is what this one's talking about. So here we'll go to our tablet. Back to our chart. alternate, we need 800 kilos to go to Manchester. That's quite high, but it's quite a long way actually. No, it makes sense. So 800. Holding fuel, which I'm going to take as final reserves, is 634. Extra fuel, we've actually gone with, what do we take extra? Let's put 300 in extra that we want to keep. And then fuel on board, we're going with a total of 800 times 2. Yeah, which is what we wanted, wasn't it? Let me just check that I've got all that right. So we've got, yeah, okay. Yeah, and let's check it's gone into the right place. So go fuel. 3.6, which is what we wanted, more than the 3.2 we need. And you can see nice old style gauges on the screen, but they are showing the right point. So anyway, 3600 total fuel. Now hopefully that'll work. Gives us our gross weight, which is pretty much the maximum weight for this airplane. This is a really heavy takeoff. I've perhaps overdone it a little bit. We might be tempted to lower that, but that should work. We'll do a flat 10 takeoff out of Exeter to make sure. Let's go to doors system, and there we go, back to where it should be. Get rid of that master warning. Okay, I'm just going to accept on the other side. So that's that data, and if we go next, there's loads more information, but I'm not overly concerned because, yeah, it's not in use for now. So I'm going to leave that on flight plan. I can't remember what else we used to do in that, so I'm going to leave it alone. That's expired, but what I'm going to do is do master crossfill from FMS 1. And there it is. Now, they don't all have 2 FMSs. That's a pretty expensive feature, and a lot of them didn't have that. So that's a nice touch. But yeah, ridiculous that you have to spend time cross-filling. It can't do it automatically because the airplane is set up to use just one. So that's just a sort of nice to have. So yeah, it's thanks for those subscriptions and follows. Really appreciate it. FlyJSim 707, Sean, 30 Barry. I really appreciate it. Ghost Rider, good to see you as well. Paddy, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Paddy has done on many of our fantastic liveries over the last few months, almost a year, I suppose. But Paddy says, on a train, I forgot my headphones, so watching along without sound. Still getting plenty of context. Thanks for the comments, lighting up every time 320 Sim Pilot forgets how to do something. Yeah, I'm sure you'll realise everything I'm missing. Very good. Right, there we go. Let's put in a stop altitude. I'm going to start off at just 6,000 feet. Got to look down here, which is what we've got set up already. Let's see, flight taxi, switch to taxi. I'm going to have the nav source to FMS 1, although we're going to take off on runway 26, so I'm going to put the heading bug round to 260. There we go. We've got the altitude in. HSI select needs to point at the side that you're using. So you see here, my HSI is on FMS 1, the FO's is on ILS 2. So if we have HSI sat across like that, then that's no good because you're going to have... it's going to try and follow this. It won't actually follow this, even if we try to engage LNAV, I believe. It gets very confused. So you have to point it at the pilot that's flying. What else do we need to do here for now? Course bar, if we wanted to set it to anything, but we're just flying straight ahead on the heading. So I'm not too worried. Nav source, well, let's put the nav source to FMS 2. There we go. And you can, I think, select FMS 1, but it goes amber to show you it's offside. You also get an HSI across marker showing you that your side isn't in control. It makes sense when you're on it, but now, to me, it doesn't make as much sense. Anti-skid should go on. And a couple of other tests. You can test the anti-skid, although I haven't... Oh, there we go. And then you get that ding. And there were a few other things. A few seconds later, it would do another ding, I think. I feel like I had to hold that switch, but I don't remember why. Anyway, the anti-skid inboard and outboard have lit up there on that caution warning panel. So we'll leave that on. Click that. Up here, you get a sort of a smiley face, and then you get these pairs. So, or not pairs, sets. So you got 4, you got 6, and I'm sure there should be less here, but I don't remember. I don't remember exactly. Flight data recorder's lit because we haven't got any of the lights running. Passenger signs can go on. Now we've got the fuel on board. Right. Moving along, because I know this has taken me 45 minutes and we haven't even gone anywhere yet, but I knew I'd do this. This is a really detailed airplane. I wanted to take time, and the flight's quite short. It's only about 1 hour 15, and we might even end up doing it quicker than that. Don't have to fiddle with this for takeoff for the GPS landing flap. You would test a few other things though, so let's have a bit of fun. We can test the ADRs, or the takeoff warning, check it's working. ADC test, which is the air data computer, and now you'll see that it sets a whole set of numbers on this PFD and starts beeping. These are numbers that we know, so we know what we're trying to do when we do that. Again, stuff that you just don't have to do on the Airbus. You do 1 and 2. Stall warner test. They've modeled this nicely if you listen. Not sure why we're getting that. And then you hear that rattle. So that is just a little stick shaker. I've got the yokes hidden away, but that's what that does. And you also got nose wheel steering, which must be off when they connect the ground stuff. Because if it's on and you turn on an engine, the hydraulics will power and that nose gear could damage itself or the tug. It's hidden away. There's no other indications on the Airbus. It's on the ECAM, but in this, it's just a tiny little metal switch. So good luck at night trying to see that. It's quite difficult. Right, APU's up and running. Let's leave it off, actually. That's fine. I was going to give some air, but we'll say we've done that. So it's time to run the checklist. Let's go to the checklist. Recirc fan is on. External check complete. Alternate gear, landing gear, inhibit switch, which we looked at, are closed and norm. Flight deck preparation is done and briefing. So we're going to push back, start up both engines. Then we're going to taxi out from 2. Use Charlie and then backtrack, take off with the little turning circle down here. Take off from 2.6, go straight ahead to 1,000 feet, and then make our right turn up towards Exmoor, which we've got a course part already pointing towards. So we'll get airborne and then we'll do a direct to Exmoor. That's pretty much it. It's going to be a flap 10 takeoff. I'm trying to remember the flap settings for takeoff. We are indeed on VATSIM. Anonymous, good to see you. Yeah, thanks for joining us back. How serious is the FPS? It's definitely heavier on the FPS than in some views. But I don't know if it's too serious. Swiss Tony 1, thanks for following. Oscar, thanks for the subscription. Jesse and J5Fly, thanks for your follows as well. Oh dear, man, there's so much to get through. It's incredible. Yeah, that's the plan for the taxi out. The aircraft is heavy, but that's not going to be too much of an issue. I'm not sure what our landing weight limits are, whether we're actually pushing that. Let's just check so we don't end up doing something too daft. This reckons the max landing weight. We're going to land at 26. We've got another ton spare. We've only taken 400 extra, so that should be absolutely fine. 0 fuel weight 25, 26.3 is the maximum. And this, if we go to fuel, reckons we are taking off at 29.528, which is slightly below the maximum takeoff weight. So we'll do a full thrust takeoff. But there we go. So that's the plan pretty much. Right, I'm sure I've missed loads of things. I'll think of lots of things I wanted to talk about, but there we go. Circuit breakers. So these are all modeled, which everyone's very impressed by. They're all over here. Very easy to miss these, but yeah, you can pull them in and out, it's amazing. And yeah, you'll get lots of cautions. By the way, this coffee cup system, Blue Phoenix, this just bounces on and it's just clipped onto this plastic here, so very loose, so very prone. This is your air vents. A few things we can see over on the FO side. You've got the transmit switch for the radio, ice detector light, and then you've got oxygen pressure, which is what the pilot's emergency oxygen, and then this is de-icing pressure. So that's hidden over here. We'll talk about that in a bit. Let's finish this up then. So circuit breakers are done, passenger signs are on, emergency lights are armed, anti-skid is on, the fuel transfer is off and checked, emergency brake pressure, so that is the emergency brake is on, and the pressure, I think I'm looking just at the park brake there, is good. I think that's what that's supposed to be. Power lever's disc, so it stands for disc. It literally just means disc. So I've got them set up like this, and I can move them now with my Thrustmaster TCA between the position of flight idle and disc. I've got it set up so that if I want to move it above flight idle, I can press the red button next to it, and it moves up to there, and you see like that, and adjust like that. Ah, that's interesting. I thought I changed a bit of that. And then I've got full control. The control lock's in the way at the moment. And if I want to bring it back, I'm just going to press that again. And bring it back through. It's quite confusing. I might have to do an actual video on it. And I'm also going to need to adjust just one of the settings. So let me do that now. So this shows you what I've got. So the red buttons are done to power handle pass through the gate. That's the little red buttons on the side. But more importantly, my axes, I just want to edit the response curve slightly. I thought I'd already done this, but obviously not. What's going on? .30 to 0.33. I know this is very tedious, but it's quite hard to control this airplane if you can't get them back to idle. Oh, not really. That's really strange, and I wonder why I had it all set up. Anyway, that's obviously going to be something for another stream, so I'll fix that, or not a stream, but there we go. Right, so they are in disc. condition levers are fuel off, takeoff data reviewed. So takeoff data, that's the last one to do. By the way, these are the condition levers. So we have power levers, these are called, which control how much power we want from the engines, obviously. And the condition levers we use to add fuel, and then we move them up the range. This does two things. It sets the target maximum thrust that you can get. So it's a bit like adjusting the gates on the Airbus. And then we've got the actual RPM it will adjust as well. Although you can override it. You can put these into a different position and a different RPM through a couple of different ways, which we will look at today. But yeah, that's the two things you need there. Takeoff data, you just click down here. It gives you your V1, VR, V2, depending on your flaps. So we'll redo that when I've got flap 10 out to see if that makes a difference. Finally then, we do need to sort out the QNH 1007. Not too much to say about that, just a normal thing, and I've got it synchronized. And there we go. To select those bugs individually, by the way, you have to press it, turn it, press it, turn it, press it, turn it. So it takes a bit of time. We're going to 6,000 feet, but I'm going to engage the FMAs later, I think. Let's get started. Right, we're on the APU. We're ready to go. That is the checks complete. Next is start approved. So battery master, main, aux and standby are all on. Doors, fueling lights are out. APU bleed is off. Anti-collisions are red. Good. And we need to be cleared for start, which we'll say we are. Good. Okay, it's all coming together. ATC is now on, so we better talk to them. We've got ATIS 119325. Let me just grab that. Sorry this is taking so long, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. But I understand if anyone can't sit for the whole thing. It's information Victor now at Exeter. This is where I'm going to find out that they're using a different runway. Runway 26, thank goodness. And they've got a QNH of 1008. Right, let's speak to Exeter Tower 1198. As I said, it's only a short flight. You'll be relieved to hear. Let's check we're transmitting and listening to box 1, which we are. And we're on stand 2. Let's see if I can get this right. Exeter Tower, good evening. Jersey 294, stand 2, dash 8 Delta with information Victor, QNH 1008, request clearance to Edinburgh.
Jersey 294, Exeter Tower, good evening. Exeter radar clears you to Edinburgh via Exmoor. After standard noise, runway 26, turn right on track Exmoor to join controlled airspace. Climb flight level 60, squawk 7015.
Jersey 294, cleared to Edinburgh via standard noise abatement and then Exmoor. After standard noise, right turn to Exmoor. Climb flight level 60, squawk 7015.
Jersey 294, correct.
Good. So to change the squawk, dead easy. Select it and then turn with this. So we want 7015. Big dial does the little ones. This is very intuitive. As I said, this box is great. Then press it again to flip them over. It's in standby at the moment, which is absolutely fine. The reason we put flight taxi to flight is, sorry, that should be on taxi. Yeah, that's right. That keeps the spoilers down when we start up the engines. We'll talk about why later on. Jersey 294, stand 2, request push and start.
Jersey 294, stand 2, push and start approved.
Push start approved, stand 2, Jersey 294. Okay, let's just check. I don't know what better pushback's actually going to do.
Ground to cockpit. Please show me
Yeah, that'll do.
to go.
We're very good evening, Baltic 22 Golf 76 information uniform. The request
Brakes released, I think, because as he told us that earlier.
Station current received, Baltic 17 Alpha, no flight plan has been received.
I think it's lifting us up, actually. Maybe I should have left the brakes on. Got a couple of wing views for you. Thanks for the follows.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
There you go. This really takes me back. Such good fun. Right, we're going to start up engine number... I think we start engine 1 first, but I don't remember. So, starting really, really easy. Let's just check there's nothing else to do on here. That's start approved. Next is the after start checklist. So, all we have to do, move over to this panel. We're going to select the start switch. Let's go to 1. It lights up select. You press it. It's electrical. It's just using electric to turn that engine over. NH turns very quickly, and then we're going to move the condition lever to start feather. Once I think it's past 15, but there we go. Fuel goes in. I can't remember the number for NHA at all, but there you go. Fuel goes in. ITT goes up. RPM starts going round and the whole thing starts spinning. And there it goes. It will stay in start feather. It's unusual. A lot of turboprops don't do that, but it means they're actually turning feathered. So they're whizzing round at a really low RPM because they're completely flat to the air. Set the brake. It gives it a really distinctive noise, like a sort of fluttering sound. Anyway, we'll start on the next engine. Very quickly done. Select. There's the NH. Otter's just got XP11. Excellent. There it goes. If you leave it too long, it will actually cancel the start. It has FADEC, so it's a very good FADEC system in the Dash 8. Disconnect. Go to the master warnings. We'll figure out what those are later. So yeah, see that how it's totally flat onto the air, which is quite hard to turn around, but they're very powerful engines. And then they sit there like this. Your place, it's very accurate. This is a very, very, very good add-on. Very good version of the Dash 8. It's amazing, really. So there you go. You see how chunky they are if you look side on, because they're totally flat, and that's why they whip around at this low RPM. Only 230. Right, that's all good. So now we can run through the after start stuff. Now there is a flow, but I'm going to just use a checklist. So external power APU off, so the DC generator's online, and I can see that because there's no DC gen written up here. You'd know if there was because you'd get the caution. Like that. Let's say, where is it? DC gen, helpfully hidden right next to the AC. The point I'm making is the AC gens are offline. That's not because they're turned off. That's because they would be off at this point because they don't come online until the engines are spinning faster. So you can see how this panel can be a bit confusing. There's lots of cautions and warnings that are sitting here normally, and we just have to get used to what they are. The Dash 8 is louder on the inside than an A320, most 100% definitely. Right, anyway, let's do that. So external power and APU off. Don't need the gen, turn it off. Good. Main bus tie off so that this just connects both sides. We don't need it now. Again, why isn't it automatic? I don't know. Bleeds, we're going to put them on and min for now. There we go. Battery temps check. So the reason you check the battery temperatures now is because if you use the batteries to start, they would get really hot and they'd need a lot of charging. And whilst they're charging, the load would be quite high. I think it was over 0.15 you couldn't take off as this little decimal 02 could be up to like 0.15 or higher if you started on batteries. So if you started a Dash 8 on batteries because you had no APU and no ground power unit, you'd find yourself sitting there having to wait for it to cool down and so on. Anyway, I must move on. Condition levers to max. So here we go. We do that and that, and then through to max, and this is a really distinctive part of the Dash 8. Starts making that roaring noise, and they go forwards, and they will bring themselves up to sort of their ground idle speed. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to carry on though. So standby hide and P2 control can come on. That's these two backup systems. I'm going to get through this now because I'm concerned for the fact I'm getting in the way. We're going to put the hide 3 valve on, which pressurizes the third backup system for the elevator, and then I can move the controls. You can't see the yoke, but there you go. The elevator's moving on this little PFCS, primary flight control systems, I'm assuming that means. Anyway, it works. We turn it off, close it up. It's a massive checklist this. We've done elevator and we turned it off again. Flaps, I'm going to set to 10. I've got that aligned with my Thrustmaster TTA, which is good. And let us click on that to get the new speeds. There we go, 118, so that makes a bit more sense. De-ice pressure check. So that means we're checking that little needle down there. So there's good pressure in both sides. And then what you do is you would test the props and you would put this to fast. And then it's going to inflate each boot like that. And you're looking down at this gauge to make sure that the little needles do a little dip and don't actually go to 0 whilst you're running through them. And if we look on the outside, you'll see each boot inflate. It's amazing. And then deflate. Such an impressive system they've come up with. So anyway, that's all work. Turn off the props, we don't need them. Turn off the airframe mode. Good, because we are getting in the way most certainly. Rudder travel, let's do that. So full left, full right. You can see it's assigned to the tiller. It wasn't supposed to be. So does that mean my QNH isn't? No, it is good. And steering switch goes on, very important, or it won't steer. It will just caster. Let's put the windshield heat to norm. Taxi lights. Radar, PFD, yaw damper. So taxi light goes on. Yaw damper on. Any master warnings or cautions? No. Pitos, parking brake. That's what we want. So we are now ready to go. Jersey 294, request taxi.
Jersey 294, taxi heading point Charlie 1, QNH 1008.
QNH 1008, taxi Charlie 1, Jersey 294. Right, let's set the QNH to 1008. And we're going to Charlie 1, which is down there. So we have to be a little bit careful. I might leave that up. Right. Brakes released. Now, I'm a bit confused. It shouldn't be connected. Steering axes. Tiller. There we go. Right. And you can see the nose wheel light on that terminal building because it's connected. That's quite good. So around we go. And you'll hear how noisy the dash is in disc. It makes a lot of noise for some reason. But as soon as you move it out of disc, so there's disc. Tell me if the airplane's too quiet. Swiss Pilot, good to see you. Thanks for coming along. And my voice is already going. If you move it forward towards flight idle, it goes very quiet suddenly. So what pilots would do is you'd obviously try and keep it out of true disc because it was just so noisy. It's not, you don't really need reverse. We never use reverse particularly, but something that is quite curious is, of course, if you have it in total disc, the airplane will just grind to a halt like this. It doesn't actually work. Let's do a brake check anyway. There we go. So there's no idle thrust because the propellers are just completely flat to the air. And then look at the detail they've gone to. As I move the power up, they get thicker, just as you'd expect going into flight idle. Amazing stuff. The sound effects are perfect. It's just what the thing sounded like. So impressed. And there's a slight whine in the background there. Too quiet. Okay. Cover your ears though, because it's going to do its thing where it gets too loud. How's that? Is that a bit better? So what you can hear now, I don't know if you can hear that, there's a slight hum, which is the standby hide and PTU, which make a funny noise in the cabin if you're sitting between the wings. Let's get my screen onto nav. The FO can go to nav as well because the batteries are in good shape. You'd also do some power flight control shut-off checks, but we'll skip that for today. Let's get rid of the gust lock. So this is because the ailerons aren't hydraulic, they could just be flopping around. So now we can move the flight controls. We have no indicator for the ailerons, we just have this roll spoilers. You can't actually see them, but there we go. And we've already done the rudder before we got going. Next I'm going to want to set up the FMA, so I'm going to press this go around switch. I'm hoping it's going to work. No, it's not. I wonder what I need to do to press it. I don't remember. Heading, press it, there we go. Wings level, heading, outsail, how does that look? Go around, heading sail, outsail. I think that's good enough. So that's going to try and point us down the runway 26, and it's going to try and level us off at 6,000 feet. It's the easiest thing to forget. If you put in the altitude in the window like you do on the Airbus, it won't remind you when you get there, and it won't try and level off unless you press outsail. You've got to always be looking for outsail. That little white text there is going to save you from a lot of paperwork. You've got to keep checking for it. If you press it again, it disappears, and then you'd sail right through it. In the real aircraft, if you accidentally nudge the VS when you got too close, you'd also sail right through it. Anyway, right, it's taken me an hour to get to this point. I can only apologise. There we go. So, that outsail button, incredibly important. I forgot it on my first flight on my video I put up today. So let's head out. Nose is very low to the ground in the dash, so it does have a habit of feeling quite fast. What's our ground speed? Our ground speed is only 10 or 11, but it feels a lot quicker because you're obviously sitting so low down. So here's holding point Charlie. Everything's set up with the trims and so on. I'm sure I've forgotten about 10 things at this point. So the spoilers switch in flight taxi, which forces them down. If we put it to flight, they'll come up. The reason they come up when you put it into flight mode is that it thinks you're on the ground, so you must be landing, so it puts the spoilers up.
Jersey 294, via Charlie 1 backtrack, runway 26, report ready for departure.
Via Charlie 1 backtrack 26, Wilco, Jersey 294. Right, before we do that then, let's turn on the pitos, because we definitely want those on. Let's turn on the big lights before we enter the runway. Let's put white anti-collision light on. And I think that's it for that. Good. It's clear on the approach, so we're going to go right, backtrack, and line up. And yeah, so if you put this to flight, the spoilers come up, which you can see down there, and you get the red warning or the amber warning. And there they are. Now this confuses jet pilots. Jet pilots who see Dash 8s, I don't know if you can hear me when I'm outside. Hopefully you can. If I quickly advance the throttles, oh no, I can't do it because of the way it's set up. But if you put the power levers forward, these will actually come down automatically because it knows you're basically trying to take off or go around, so they come down. If you forget and you leave it in taxi position, they'll stay down, and then when you add power, they'll pop up anyway. sorry, that switch will pop up on its own. It's got a little solenoid. So it's a bit of a curious switch why it has to exist at all and why that couldn't have been automatic. But there you go. So we'll do it properly. We'll put it to flight. And it's nearly happening. We're nearly on the way. Oh, goodness me. So go backtrack. Right, let's finish up the checklist then. Taxi. Lights set. Altimeter set. Flight instruments check. Oh, here we go, of course. So fuel pumps for the tanks come on. Just backup pumps like any GA plane. And then auto feather select. So that should appear on there, AF select. That's important because if that is there, it means that if an engine fails, the propeller will automatically feather and not drag you down. Flaps, we've got 10 set and indicating. Auto feather's a video on its own. Trims are set 3 times. All set. A little bit that way, perhaps. Let's not go off the end, though, while we do this. Takeoff warning test. So that's that switch over there. We did look at it earlier. That's funny. It was beeping. Ah, it will beep because the spoilers are up. So now... Oh, I forgot that. Now it works. So you had to do the takeoff warning test before you set this switch up. I forgot about that. Another brilliant thing. Propeller levers are at max 1020. Pedostatics are on. Ice protection not required. Caution warning lights are checked. They're all out. Flight clearance reviewed. Cabin is secure. Lineup checks now. Camera crew notified. Let's give them a ding. Bleed air 1 and 2. Min and off. Anti-collision white. Transponder, we can set this to on out by just holding it down. Flight controls, we've checked free. Flight taxis, now it goes to flight. There you go. Landing lights are all on. So that is complete. Next checklist is the after takeoff.
taxi heading point Charlie 1, QNH 1008.
So disc mode is just that they're completely flat. So they look like a big disc. They're not providing thrust. They're not pointing forwards. So you taxi with them somewhere between disc and flight idle. You can see them get a little bit thicker as I do that. Can you tell hit the ground if you take off too hard? Yeah, absolutely. And you might hear it when we take off. You might hear that little thud as the oleos extend. I don't know why it's so noticeable on the dash, but it is. I think it's because the gear seems to go right into the wing spar, but I don't know. I don't know an exact reason. Right, that is us pretty much ready to go. Again, I'm sure I've forgotten something. Jersey 294 ready for departure.
Jersey 294, thank you. Surface wind 310 degrees, 4 knots, runway 26, clear takeoff.
Clear takeoff 26, Jersey 294. Let's have a tower view. There we go. Oh, we are causing a problem. So let's get ourselves round and out of the way. So we're going to go end top, which is normal takeoff power. We're not going to derate for this takeoff. That is a thing you can do, but we're not going to bother. Love it. Such a good recreation, this. Really amazing. So G Jedi is going to live again. And we're going to head out. So I've moved my thrust levers forwards. Then I'm going to hold the little button to put them into flight. And now I'm going to go all the way to flight rating. No real stabilization on that. So you can see how heading selector's brought it into the middle. And away we go, heading up to Edinburgh. It's going to need a bit of right rudder as we rotate because of the torque of the propellers. They've turned the same direction, so they do give you adverse yaw, quite strangely. V1 rotate. Up we go. Positive climb. Gear up. And now I'm just going to pitch to those flight directors. There's a bit of a glitch in the terrain database there. So gear is up. Get it into trim. It is a normal airplane. So my only opinion so far on the flight model is the real aircraft will definitely need a bit of right rudder for takeoff as you rotate it. And I don't quite feel that, but I don't know if that's a limitation because it was a very momentary thing. And there we go. It's in trim. It's cruising away. That's what we want to do. We can't...
Contact Exeter radar 128.975. Bye-bye.
128.975. Jersey 294, bye. Right, we can't engage autopilot until 1,000 feet, but there we go. So acceleration altitude, autopilot engage. Then I'm going to select IS and wind it up to 210. There we go, which is going to lower the nose. Once we're above that bug, I'm going to bring the flaps to 0. So flaps 5, flaps 0. Not sure why it's leveling off. I think this is how we used to do it. Anyway, we're going to do condition levers to 900, which I've got assigned to my speed brake. So there we go. They go to 900. And you'll see that this changes from end top to max climb. And then we're going to go bleeds on and min. So now we're pressurizing. So that is roughly what I remember we used to do. Something like that. Right, we're past 1,000 feet, so now we can route to Exmoor. So I'm going to go DTO, Exmoor, number 2. Oh, it's already got Exmoor in. Enter. And now you've got to actually engage LNAV. It won't do it for you, even though you obviously want it. So I press nav, and it goes LNAV, and round it goes. Good. We're leveling at 6,000 feet, which is a flight level, he said. So I need to actually set standard myself. It won't remind me. It would let me level off at the wrong setting quite easily. So we push that. 1013. And now we're climbing to flight level 60, but you see it stays at 6,000. So that is a very confusing feature of the altimeter. It doesn't remind you that you need to set standard. It doesn't know the transition levels. It won't let you tell it either, like the Airbus does, and it doesn't flash at you. So it's a bit of a shame. That certainly. Outside is engaged, most importantly. Good. Now I'm going to contact 128975. So the big thing here is we're climbing up. And you think, okay, great, it's going to level off at 6,000 feet, which is fine, and it will. But if it levels off and I'm not watching, it's going to speed up because there's no auto thrust at all. Exeter, good evening. Jersey 294, turning right to Exmoor, climbing flight level 60.
Jersey 294, Exeter radar, identified deconfliction service, climb flight level 70.
Climb flight level 70, deconfliction service, Jersey 294. So we're outside controlled airspace. That's quite a normal sort of thing for him to say. There's that beep, which I've spent a lot of my time listening to, but there we go. So flight level 70 is in with outcell, and we're just rocketing up. Now you'll notice I'm climbing in IAS, not VNAV. VNAV is not really used that much. In IAS mode, if I take the power off like that, the nose will drop and the vertical speed will reduce, and if I add it back, it'll increase and it will go back to normal. So it's just a sort of it's like open climb, I suppose, except you've got manual thrust going. There's 1,000 feet to go, so I'm going to start bringing the power back because we don't want to go shooting up to flight level 702 quickly. 2,300 feet per minute is quite serious. And that way it'll make it a bit easier, obviously, for the level off. Right, we can turn off the fuel pumps now. We'll turn off the backup hydraulic systems. We're going to turn off the auto feather.
Jersey 294, entering control airspace, radar control, climb flight level 240.
Climb flight level 240, radar control service, Jersey 294. Perfect. All the way up to 240. It's a long way to scroll. 240. So let's set IS210 properly. There it is. LNAV IS210, outcell 240 on standard. After takeoff checklist time. So after takeoff, we've done landing gears up. Flaps are at 0. Landing gears definitely up, yeah. Climb power is set. Bleed air 1 and 2 on and min. Maybe they'd be on norm now. Let's put it as a norm. Feels more likely. Standby hide, press PTU control. Both gone off because they're backups. Tank fuel pumps off. We don't need those. Auto feather off. Engine T's and P's check. So you got all your, obviously, this is quite self-explanatory, normal indications. Quite easy to read, actually, the T's and P's. Ice protection not required. Cabin pressure and temper control. So I'm going to look up, a bit like the 7.3, and check that we've got a differential pressure. So we are pressurizing to some extent. We've got a cabin altitude of about 4,500 feet, which is quite high, actually. And a climb rate of about 1,000 feet per minute. Also quite high. Probably because we had it in min. Probably couldn't pressurize as much as it would like. So I wonder what's going to happen now. Keep an eye on that. It might be a bit more aggressive in a moment. Passenger signs, we'll leave on for now. And that's the after takeoff checks complete. Next will be the cruise. So, I'm hoping that you're going to get the idea. Oh yeah, fuel pump 1, thanks. You're going to get the idea that there's a lot to do in this airplane. It's full of different systems that don't really talk to each other, so you've got to do it for them. For example, FMS 1 is not talking to FMS 2, so that you can see that we've got direct to Exmoor. This still has our original route over here. If you only had one FMS, that wouldn't have happened, because this would be using the number 1 system anyway. So we could cross-fill it. Passenger signs off, 10,000 feet. Get rid of the landing lights. Taxi lights should have turned off already, actually. And there we go. Okay, up to the cruise, and then we'll talk about a few other things. What is the cruise checklist? Altimeters, power, cabin. Yeah, okay, a few other things. Some more detailing you've got here, by the way. This little thing, you'd put your Jefferson paper charts down here when you had them. Don't have those anymore, just the iPad, but there, that's what that was for. Quite nice, had its own little light for it as well, which I did like. You could set the lighting really nicely in the dash.
We need to be tracking Exmoor, turn left to the unit 005.
Yes, affirmative. Now turning left. Sorry.
Baltic 17, are you able to track Exmoor from now?
Inbound Exmoor now, Baltic 17.
Thank you.
Freddie says, would you always climb in MCL? So, yeah, pretty much. A bit like open climb. Why wouldn't you? We want to get up to our most efficient level up at 24,000 feet. There is something we could do, and I can't remember if this is how normal this was, but let's say it's quite noisy at 900, so you could bring these back to 850 RPM, but then what it's going to do is automatically go from max climb to max cruise, MCR. So if I bring them back, remember I said earlier, this actually sets the RPM, which it does quite certainly, but then it also adjusts the maximum power. So now we're at max cruise, but we want to keep climbing at max climb. So if I then press MCL, you get MCL back again up here, and now we're climbing at max climb thrust, or torque, but with 850 RPM, which is a bit quieter. So I'm pretty sure you'd have seen or heard crews do that. If that's still an SOP or not, I don't know. So let's put them back to 900s, still max climb, and that's more normal. But yeah, that's a bit quieter. But it's a good question. Someone else is asking, well, this doesn't work, so wouldn't we crossfill it? Yeah, so if you go to menu,
Baltic 17 Alpha, entering control.
crossfill
Radar
from
control,
FMS1.
climb, flight level 1 of 50.
No, that didn't even work. Maybe it doesn't do that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not used to having two, I must confess.
Say again.
Was blocked the last communication.
Andor, good to see you. Thanks for coming along. Hope you're doing well. Thanks, Adam, for the subscription.
Baltic 17
And
Alpha,
all the other follows. Really, really appreciate it.
Now it's a radar control service.
Very kind.
Climb, flight level 1 of
Sorry, I've missed so many. It's been busy.
Flight 150 under the radar control.
Yeah, if you only have one FMS, of course, and that fails, that's it. You've lost it. We are flying to Edinburgh, Gerda. What else have I missed? What else have I missed? If you are watching on YouTube, do please leave a like for the video. If you're enjoying it, it does make a big difference. Yeah, I don't think I got a chance to show you the thump. You can definitely hear the thump of the landing gear as they extend. That might be something I have to do in a video, just because with air traffic on, don't have much choice. As you can see, though, we are at heavy weight there. Something that I remember doing is that you go to pitch now. So if I press IS again, it goes to pitch hold, which is a basic mode. The reason is it won't keep 210 knots now, and it starts to level off. So if we leave it at pitch hold now, it's going to climb thrust at 5 degrees of pitch, which should be safe. But you just got to keep an eye on the speed, and then we can adjust it as we need to. Very strange, I know, but that's otherwise you'd find yourself just sort of leveling off soon. But yeah, it does a good job at climbing this airplane, considering, you know, maximum weight, and we're going to go up to pretty much the maximum cruise level. But climbing in pitch is just unheard of, really rare. The landing gear on the Dash 8 is also much quicker than other aircraft such as Airbus. Yeah, it is very quick. One of the things about the Dash 8's gear is, of course, it's aligned. It goes into the gear bay straight. It doesn't have to go in sideways, so there's no gyroscopic force. So it doesn't actually put the brakes on. So on an Airbus, when you put the landing gear lever up, the brakes are applied to the wheels because they're rotating. They're a bit like a gyroscope. So if you, like a motorbike, you know, when the wheels spin, it helps keep it upright. If you were to then try and move spinning wheels across and into the gear bay of an Airbus, it would cause all sorts of torque and forces on the landing gear and stress it. On the Dash, because they go backwards, it doesn't have that. It doesn't move across the spinning axes. I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but anyway, as a result, they go into the gear bay spinning, which is unusual. You can see it on videos, and if you've ever been on one. As a result, they used to come up, and then you'd sit there, and if a wheel was slightly out of balance, you'd feel... 1228, thanks for your help, Jesse294. You'd sit there, and you'd feel the whole plane sort of shuddering, because the gear is up here, next to the wing, just vibrating around. Quite normal. The exterior model is unbelievable. It's so good. So good. Yeah, they've just absolutely nailed it. So there you go, through 20,000 feet, speed's starting to reduce now, but still totally safe. I think about 170 knots minimum clean without any ice on the aeroplane. Use FLC for climb. No such thing, I'm afraid. No flight level change. Anything else up here? Mode. So you've got IS, vertical speed, VNAV, which we're not going to use for climb. Outsail, which remember we must keep making sure we've got. Heading, nav for L, nav approach, back course, and standby. If I press standby, it turns off all the flight directors. So the next checklist will be our cruise checklist. Flight's about an hour. Thanks, Otto Totems. Yeah, about an hour 15. AC445 says, I've been on many different Dash 8s. Quite a lovely thing to see the landing it. Yeah, it is. It is. IS is basically flight level change. Okay, because I don't know flight level change very well from the Boeings. It's a similar idea, but we don't use IS up at this level because, as you'll see, it would have to constantly reduce the speed. It wouldn't really work. Simon says, does the FO always read through the checklist and the captain carry out the checks? Are these now ticked off on a device and is it monitored by the airline? No, well, I don't know any airline that has a monitored checklist like that. And no, it's not always the FO. It's pilot monitoring does the checklist, pilot flying does the flying. So this is an unusual system where you're doing it all yourself in FlyJSim, which is definitely a bit of a challenge. 12782, we got another controller. They must have seen a lot of Dash 8s flying up and down these routes very recently. Get a little waypoint alert as we get close. And then our normal, you know, we can change the range here. Quite simple EFIS selectors. I'm not sure why. The top part of my MFD never looks as bright as I think it should. I don't know why. Jersey 294. We are climbing flight level 240 to Numpo.
Hello, climb flight level 240 from present position, proceed direct to Ribble.
Climb flight 240 and we're routing to Ribble, Jersey 294. Right, 240. And we've got DTO. Let's find Ribble. There it is, it's basically the start of our arrival. Now, is there any clever way to do it? No, I think we just type in 16. We could probably type in Ribble, but I don't know. So there we go, Ribble, we're already in LNAV, but if we were in heading, we'd have to make sure we do that, and there's 1,000 feet to go, and we're routing to Ribble, 159 miles to go. Mr. BD says, I fly Challenger for work, flight level change honours the speed over everything else, basically saves you from stalling the aircraft. You set it to 250 and it adjusts. Yeah, so that would be the normal way, but it just wasn't the procedure in the Dash. Naptown says, let me ask you this. I've always had a better luck not flaring and keeping power in when landing. Is it redundant to flare? It needs a bit of a flare. Flat 15 and flat 35 it needs a lot of a flare. We're going to do a flat 15 today to look at that. But the you might need to add a bit of power to do a flat 15 safely, because otherwise it will sink onto the runway and you don't have the pitch to adjust and get the nose up where you need it. That is a really, there you go, at start. That is it's the difficulty of flat 15 is just that you've got that 5 degrees. We'll talk about landings when we get there. There we go, out. 240 on standard, all good. And now we're going to accelerate to whatever our cruise speed is going to be, something like 240.
Jersey 101, tracking direct to Exeter, and we're at flight level 70. Jersey 101, hello, under control, roger, climb flight level 240. Thank you, climb flight level 240, Jersey 101.
Thank you so much to Marcel Dupree. I'm so sorry I missed that one. I'm just going to run that again. Marcel Dupree says, a super chat of £2 says, love your streams, busy Cockpit. Thanks so much, Marcel. Yeah, it's been it's been very busy. Really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the channel so much, and thanks for coming along again today. And Wojtek CVR, thank you so much for your Canadian $10 donation. Really appreciate it, Wojtek. Wojtek says, thanks for the lesson. I was flying Q400 as a passenger many times. Would love to add this to my hangar, but I'm afraid that my GPU would not be too happy. Thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate it, Wojtek. Very kind. So thank you myself. Thank you, Wojtek. And I'm glad you're enjoying the video. There's so much to this airplane. I'm having a great time. Oh, there we go. Look, we got the contrails again. I don't know whether it's GPU or CPU that's the problem, but it is definitely heavy on the frames. I'd say it's up there with my heaviest. You'll notice I've not got the Orbex scenery. I've got default X-Plane at the moment because I just wanted to make sure the stream would run smoothly. I did have trouble because I had too much scenery around London when I was using the A340. And I would say this is as heavy as the A340 in terms of frames. I mean, it's incredibly detailed, so I can see why. But yeah, it is a bit heavy on the frames. So I don't know whether it's the GPU or CPU that's causing the problem, because it's heavy on my frames, and you know, with the RTX 3080 you'd think it'd be fine. So it could be the CPU. Alright, Danny says, hi, you've got so much knowledge. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for coming along. And Danny says, question, while reading documents of Q400, I see NTOP, normal takeoff power, and MTOP, which is maximum takeoff power, which, yeah, means those respectively. In what case would MTOP be used? Now, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. So here we can reduce the takeoff power, and here's the button for MTOP. I don't remember if I ever had to do that and what the difference would have been over NTOP. I'm sorry, that's just slightly beyond my memory. I think, as I was saying earlier, you saw that we got out of Exeter no trouble, maximum weight basically, with basically no headwind. It wasn't that hot, I suppose, but we got out of there no trouble with Flat 10, and I think it would be very rare to need MTOP, but maybe there's an extreme situation where you might use it. Maybe somewhere like London City. I can't think back enough to that. Vladimir says, Indy build planes are also very well modelled, but they're very easy on frames. This is optimization. Okay. Yeah, it could be. It's definitely on the heavier side. It's not like it's extreme compared to... It's not the worst ever. It's just, it's heavier on frames than most. You'll notice it. I noticed it when I was using it. Some views are better than others, and the cockpit is very good. I have no particular trouble in the cockpit. But usually when I go to an interior view, that big cabin makes a difference. But it's never become too much of an issue for me so far. Alex says, did you even know the circuit breakers are modelled? Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I did hear that. I won't put any in flight. But something we do need to do is, we've reached our cruise speed. I'm going to bring the power back a little bit. You see it's at MTL, that's no good. Time to bring it to 850. So, 850, max cruise, nice and quiet in the cabin, and you get that activated noise cancelling in the Q400 that does a little bit of noise cancelling for you. Victor Tango, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Glad you've enjoyed it. No problem at all, this has been a long one. AC455 says row 15 to 17 is a favourite. There you go. Row 15 to 17. I wonder, does it model the... So you can see that, yeah, because we've got these window blinds and so on, it does start to lag. Does it? I don't think we have row numbers. They'd be written up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so is that right at the back? That'd be somewhere just behind the wing then. Where you want to be sitting as a passenger, if you don't want the noise, is the back. Yeah. Very common on these aircrafts, turboprop aircrafts, back before they became, you know, everything became jets. Oh, yeah, nice and quiet back here. Where you don't want to be is sitting in between those propellers. You would hear about it. Martin says the huge amount of click spots seems to affect performance. Yeah, whether that's the reason, it could be, couldn't it? It has so many. So many. Right, let's do the cruise. Altimeters are set to standard. Power is now set to 850. Cabin pressure, oh, let's check. Did that work out? Yeah, there we go. So diff has gone up. Altitude stayed at about 7,000 feet. And we're not going to go much higher. Lights as required. Is that, what lights is it talking about? Passenger signs? Anyway, that's all fine. Good, well, that's all done. Right. Dougal says you should hear the noise in the C-130, especially with the doors open. I can't imagine. 4 turboprops roaring away. Yeah, this is a noisy beast, but it is called the Q400. The Q does stand for quiet, believe it or not. It's quiet. It's famous for having a low noise footprint on the outside. The only funny thing is, in disc on the ground, because I used to live near the airport where these operated, you could actually hear. I couldn't hear any of the jets at idle, but I could hear these at disc, because disc is so much louder on the ground taxiing around than idle thrust on a jet. Now jets do sort of scream when you're near to them, but any distance away you couldn't really hear them. But these things I could hear echoing around. Quite an eerie sound, really. Checkpoint says, heard we're getting hydrogen electric prop planes from Rotterdam to London. Would love to go on a flight. Yeah, that would be amazing. Great idea. It's almost at the back, says AC45. Yeah, there you go. Air conditioning, says Vladimir. That's a great question. There you go. Schwig could hear the Q400 from a couple of blocks away, exactly. Right, air conditioning. Here we go. So the Dash 8 has, similar to the Airbus, you've got, so reselect fan, you just have those on, then just blow the fan around, blow the air around, pump it back in a little bit through filters. Then you've got your bleed air on, which pumps the air in, and norm so it can pressurize. Up here, we have a temperature gauge, which shows us the duct, not the cabin temperature. So I can select the cabin duct, which is running quite cool. It's trying to pump cold air into the cabin. Or maybe that's the cabin temperature. So the cabin is at 21 degrees, it's pumping in cool air. Because we've got a lot of passengers, I suppose. Flight compartment duct is pumping in cool air. And I don't know what the temperature is. I suppose you can just feel it. I don't know. So this swaps between them. Down here we have temperatures, cabin, and flight compartment. And there is option FA, flight attendant. We have the option to wind it all the way around, and then let the, if it's in FA, then the flight attendant could actually select it. There's a panel in the cabin. Let's see if I can find it. Can we go through the door? Yes, we can. Up here. Oh, I can't believe it. Look at that. Even this works. Now, they don't get as much control as those dials in the flight deck, but they do work. And the cabin crew could adjust this a little bit to be warm and cool. So can I control the lights? Yes, you can. I can't believe that. Wow. And they even come on and off with a bit of a flicker. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. PSU, I think, is the... I think that's the sounds... No, NVS. That's it. The noise cancelling is NVS. And if that light comes on, it's broken. That used to happen all the time. So you can actually turn it off.
Cruising flight level 360.
Lufthansa 2149, good evening, roger.
Don't know if it makes a difference. And NVS not would mean it's broken. So there's little actuators that would listen to the sound of the propellers and the vibration. And they would then counteract it by banging on the side of the fuselage in the opposite way is the idea. Oh, I don't know, Martin. That's interesting. Maybe. I don't remember that. I don't remember that one. Let's turn off the boarding light. Yeah, that's an interesting theory. Yeah, there were all sorts of funny things. So something to point out is that the this duct that we're looking at here, it actually, oh look, because it's gone, I've warmed it up. How interesting. Yeah, this duct is shared. There is a divide, slight divide, but it's not perfect. So actually, you couldn't separate the two. If you did this, it did its best, but it couldn't really do it very well. So they had to be relatively in sync, which often meant a very cold flight deck for the pilots. And this is off man auto packs. I'm assuming that's the packs then. Auto, man, and off. So we'll leave them in auto. I don't know what you do with them in man. No, that's beyond me. Sorry. Right, yeah, toilet flush time. It is ridiculous. I've never seen quite so many things. All the decals. So it's actually here. It's not labelled, but so amazing detail. I can't believe they put it in.
Jersey 2904, contact Scottish Control, frequency 133.2, goodbye.
Sorry, could you say again the frequency, please, for Jersey 294?
It's 133.2.
133.2, Jersey 294.
Sky is 4 Yankee Mike, no further ATCs.
I won't tell him what we're doing.
Switch to Unicorn, 122
I'm sure plenty of people have been doing this midstream. Right, amazing detail. The only thing I'm going to say, and I'm not complaining, is that the flush on the Dash 8, it was basically a chemical toilet. So when you press it, it just poured like blue liquid in. I don't know if some were fitted with pressurized ones, but certainly I never saw one. So the Airbus, it does this noise, and most jets do, where it's using a vacuum to pull all the water and waste out of the way. Whereas the Dash, it just sat there and then water would just sort of wash everything away. So it wasn't quite as fancy. So that noise is slightly too good for this toilet, but I'm certainly not going to complain at having that. There you go.
Flight level 210, Jersey 3 Foxtrot Yankee.
Control, Jersey 294, flight level 240 to Ribble.
Jersey 294, roger.
Oh, Edinburgh, must update that. That will go wrong very quickly.
Flight heading 110 degrees.
I have not tried flushing the loo on Concord, I'm afraid, no. Baron, thanks for your follow. Hi, thank you for the follow. Sorry, I know I'm missing loads of those.
Super 62 Alpha, descend flight level 80.
Descend flight late, sir.
No, the hand wash doesn't squirt soap, I'm afraid, Hayden. Yeah, I can't believe we answered from the toilet. Yeah. Yeah, not complaining, I must stress, but that's just I couldn't help but notice. Just because I remember so vividly what that toilet was like. Right, this is the weather radar panel, that's not working. Engine intakes. If I press these,
Jersey 3 Kilo Golf, descend flight
they go out, and then they'll eventually show open OPN in amber.
Descend level 110, figure out.
Jersey 8 Papa Lima, descend flight level 80.
They take time to travel. So they say open, and then next to them it would say heater. Right, so I'm not sure why. I must have decided. I can't remember when the heater comes on and off, but there we go, open heater. So these are little things underneath the engine intakes. They're that little door there. Good to see you, Pilot Peter. I hope you're doing well. Very good. And thanks for coming along. We're doing very well here. Thanks, Drone. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So that is an intake door. You see how it opens up? And there's one on each side. And it also means this intake area in here is heated. Sort of grey area. So, you saw earlier, the jet intake is not actually like a normal jet. It's not forward. Yeah, I can't really get to it now. But it's, because if I press C, it's just going to vanish off. Yeah. So, it's, the air goes in here and then up. When we've turned, if we think we're building up ice can actually build up in this intake because this is sucking in air. So there's a low pressure in here and ice will build up, a bit like a carburetor. So that had to be heated to stop that happening if you're in icing conditions. And we had to turn it on quite a lot. The problem is that ice, you don't want it to break off and go into the engine, ideally. So this little door, it would be a bit heavy, this ice, and it would go out this door. That was the idea of it. So you'd have it open like that. And yeah, it would heat up that sort of intake area. It was a common problem after, if you had the Dash 8 sitting at night, and there was a bit of a frost, it would be quite easy for ice to form inside that intake, which is very hard to clear out. You sort of need engineers to do it, because you couldn't do it, like the icers wouldn't be able to do it. You can't just chuck the icing fluid into the engine. So it was a bit of a tricky one. Bit of a tricky one. But yeah, so that's modelled, and that's what that does. Anything else I can think of on the outside? I love the dirt behind the landing gear, that's very common. This stuff used to get really grubby, lots of oil and bits. You know, it's a hard working aeroplane. Anyway, we don't need those now, we're in beautiful conditions.
Jersey 3
2 Point says, so it is the door for ice cubes. You've got to remember that next time I pick up a soda. Absolutely, that's it. Brad says, do you think I should wait for it to go on sale or nah, $80 seems like a lot. Don't be, you know, I don't want anyone to feel rushed into buying it just because it's the new thing. You know, if you're really looking forward to this airplane, then it's, to me, it's worth the money. Because it is an excellent version of the airplane. I haven't found anything I don't like. But if you weren't that fussed, it's a very different airplane, and take your time, think about it, think if you're going to use it or not, because it is expensive. So you want to make sure you're going to use it if you're going to spend the money on it. And I know it's tempting because, of course, we've seen it a lot. It's been all over YouTube and streams and so on, which is just the way when a new airliner releases. But it's easy to get caught up in that. But if you really, really like it, this is an excellent version. It's an amazing add-on. If you've already got XP11, it is really good. But it's a very different airplane. There's no auto thrust. You're not going to set it up and go to bed if you like doing your long-haul flights, because it's going to run out of fuel. So yeah, but it is absolutely top-notch. RJP has the Majestic for P3D, but not flown it. Yeah, there you go. That's the thing. Majestic was fantastic add-on as well. Right, what else can we do? We're going to do a flat 15 landing, so I'll set that to 15. Otherwise, the Jupiter will get upset with us. And therefore, I can click on this, and we'll get the approach speeds. 128, good. Pretty fast, actually, because with flat 15, you do more normal approach speeds. If we set it to 35, and then press it, there you go, 122, pretty slow. Not much different though. I love that performance being built in, very nice, very easy. Flat 15 would be normal, so flat 10, emergencies. Flat 15 normal. The reason we would use flat 15 is because less drag, and it was actually a bit easier to land on a nice day. If the weather was bad though, flat 35 gives you a lot more control. We also land on approach, any variable pitch propeller. So these propellers are sitting at 850, and it doesn't matter what I do to the power, they will sit at 850. So what we're doing, we're changing the torque supply. We are doing the same thing like a throttle. We're adding fuel, right? But what happens is, instead of the propeller increasing speed like on a fixed pitch propeller on your typical sort of Cessna, it adjusts the angle of the propeller. So the more fuel we add, the more torque goes into the engine, but the propeller tries to stay at exactly the same speed. So it's going coarser to the air. It's like going into a higher gear, and it does that continuously for the whole flight. And that's why they look so thick from the side, because they're pushing a lot of air backwards up here. But this is where this airplane's happiest, up in the cruise. And it's burning next to no fuel. Look at that, 455 aside, and that's not even cruise power. Cruise power is something like 800 kilos total. It's amazing, really very good. Right, let's see if Edinburgh's online, because we've had a lot of controllers. Do you always need full flaps for landing? No, so flat 15 would be quite common. But in turbulence or short runways, flat 35, obviously.
Yeah, I'm too high, I'm afraid.
Altimeters, approach.
I need some more vectoring just to extend the
Oh no, that's descent. Let's not do that.
3,500 feet, turn left, heading 110 degree.
3,500, volume 110, speed by 6 knots.
Okay, is there a controller there?
Jersey 3, Fox Yankee, fly heading 09.
Ooh, a lot of controllers. Yeah, there is. We have everything. The latest and all. Right, so in Edinburgh, they're using information Romeo. Runway 24. Right, I've got to change that approach around. Let's hope I can do that. Transition level 75. Doesn't matter, the dash won't tell us. It's 3404 knots. So that is light winds, flat 15 landing for sure, because the runway's long enough. It's varying around. Temperature 7. It's very cold. Dew point is +3. QNH 1012. High pressure. It's Cav OK, so it's quite a nice day there. So that's the weather in Edinburgh. Let's bring up the charts then. Oh, that was a bit alarming. InPip. We go InPip, Escdo, Tartan to hold if we need it. Approach. RSDME24. Good. And finally, airport. There it is. Good. So, here's the plan. Esto, InRev, InRev, Esto up to Tartan. Radar vectors from Tartan, otherwise do this arc down to the RLS, normal RLS, to 3,000 feet platform. And we can intercept that clean if we want. It'll be absolutely fine. The dash can slow down, or the real one certainly can. This one doesn't slow down quite as much, but I haven't got my throttle set up quite right, so I need to readjust them and try again. See if I can get it. Because on the real dash you could slow down from 210, 3,000 feet, and it would just be like putting on the brakes. It's amazing. especially if you increase the RPM. So if we're high in the descent, we talked earlier about those RPMs being at 850. When we descend, we're going to bring the power to idle, and the propellers will become like brakes because they'll be using the airflow to spin around, which provides drag. If you increase the speed of the propellers, the airflow will have to spin them faster at 1020. They'll go even finer, more like flat towards the air, a bit more like our disc we saw earlier on the ground, which is like putting out the speed brakes, which is why we don't have any speed brakes for use in flight, just those roll spoilers. Anyway, so you can slow it down very easily. It's very good at slowing down. Power back a bit more. So there we go, down we go, and we'll do the gear at about 5 miles like normal, and flat 15 for landing. So flat 5, and then we'll go gear down. And then at some point we'll put the condition levers to max, but what we'll do before we do that is we'll press reduced NP landing. That's NP is the propeller speeds, and you don't have to actually land with them at 1020. If you're in windy weather, I would, but if it's normal weather, you can leave them at 850 just by pressing that and moving them forward, and it will keep them at 850. If you then go around, it will automatically increase the speed. So the funny thing with doing that is if you press reduced NP on approach, bring these condition levers forward, what happens is they'll stay at 850. If you go around though, it will automatically increase the RPM to 1020. What can happen is, as you bring the power levers, if you get a big gust or something and you need to add power, you bring them forward. If you go too far forward and they sense the torque, they'll actually come out of 850 and go to 1020. So you might be on approach in a dash and you'll suddenly hear a massive swing of the engines, and that could be that happening, or they're going around. But yeah, it's quite a strange sound. It does alarm the passengers a little bit. Right. Harvey says, look up to your left. Let's see if we can see any colleagues up there. There we go. Excellent. Someone easy outpacing us, presumably getting all the shortcuts ahead of us. Matt says, I used to work at Flybe at Exeter. I cleaned the aircraft prior to ABC checks. Got to know it inside out. The gear bays and bolt fairings used to get notoriously filthy. Lovely aircraft. There you go. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for coming along, and thanks for that insight. Yeah, very filthy. And there's our nose gear. We were commenting how good that texturing is. We can indeed see you, Harvey. Yeah, 29 FPS now. It does vary. Yeah, so yeah, it is a lovely plane. Checkpoint for that? I don't know. I haven't heard anything, I must confess. Apparently Airbus 220 has won the battle of fuel efficiency. Airlines changed the Dash 8 to 220. Oh, I hadn't heard that. It's unusual, but this new generation of jets could well beat it out. But you know, the Neos are nowhere near the fuel burn of this. It is an incredibly efficient aeroplane, and it's been around for a long time like that. Right, let us change the approach. So go to flight plan, menu, arrive, not 06, we want 24. Still the IMPIP number 3, no transition, we're going to do the ILS 24. No transition. Let's just look through the flight plan. Ribble, IMPIP in rev, Esto Tartan, no link, and then the ILS 24, which is what we expected. Any performance to put in? So current weights at Edinburgh, we're going to be 28.4. So that's quite handy. Thanks, Mark, for the subscription. If we go to our chart, $28,090. We're going to be too heavy because we're just not burning through the fuel as it thought we would. Yep, should be 28,123 as a maximum. We'll be 28,392. So there you go. Interesting. And if we adjust the power, that will presumably change. Yeah, so if I go back to the flight rating, it does drop a bit. So we'll have to fly a pretty inefficient approach. We'll sort that out. Won't worry too much about it. It's just, after all, we are just simulating, but that would be something that you wouldn't want to do. Here's where we can put a hold in maneuver, holding definition. You could write one in if we needed it. Wouldn't do that unless I actually had to do it. I can hardly remember how to do that as well, so it might take me a few attempts. Required navigation performance is 2. Actual navigation performance, it doesn't seem to know. Not sure why. And it does give us the wind. Yeah, very good. Here's our directs. I can't think what else to see in here. Performance has only got 1 page. What about fuel? Yeah. Current fuel flow. Fuel on board at Edinburgh 2.4. Loads. Funny feeling we used to use this screen for filling out paperwork. Can't remember it exactly. There's the fuel flow. See that little M at the top? It leaves us an M. That means there's a message stored. So that database expired, one stays. I think that will clear after landing, and then you can't get it back again. But for now, we can just press message. I think it will clear then. Right, the ILS we need to set up. 1089241. I don't think it's automatic in any way, so... In fact, I'm pretty sure it isn't. So I'm going to tune it now into nav 1. 108. Oh. It's obviously easier to use when you've got the whole controller for it. 108.9. Flip flop it to the top. And then the same in ILS2. So just select 108.9. So easy. It's a really simple and brilliant system, this. Absolutely love it. We need to set the course ourselves. Now, I was trying to remember how to do this. Send earlier, it should be a few pounds extra. Yeah, Mr. BD, I think we might do that. I don't know any other planes that use the UNS one. They must be out there, but I don't know it. Yeah. Yeah, it's very different. And I really miss not having a scratch pad. In the real aircraft, I'm constantly writing stuff down in the Airbus. PC part list, if you go to my website, www.320simpilot.com, my PC's on there. Or exclamation mark specs, if you type it into the chat. Mr. BD says, if you tune it with the designator, the 3 letters that's written above the frequency, instead of the frequency, it will auto-tune. Ah. Oh, well, I won't manage that. That's a new one on me. Thanks for the follow. Is this better than Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in terms of realistic amount of things you can do? No, there's aircraft in Microsoft, the CRJ, Microsoft Flight Simulator, has all of these things in it. But this does have a few extra things with, you know, the window blinds and so on. Definitely, yeah. FlyJSim do a lot of extras like that. But in terms of actual systems and so on, it's very accurate. But there isn't a Dash 8 in Microsoft Flight Simulator, of course. That is the thing. Right, what was I doing? Oh, yeah, now I need to set the course. So, yeah, I don't think there's any way for me to do that now. There surely must be. I don't remember how we used to do that. So we need to set the course, which is going to be 241. But if I was to change the nav source, it just goes into wings level mode. But anyway, let's set the course while we're here. 241. Then go back to FMS1, and then I've got to go back into nav. Can't believe that's what we used to do. Set the course 241 and 108.9, and then go back into FMS2. There we go. Good. Round we go. Keep updating the heading bug. Right. Anything else? We can tune the Edinburgh NDB 341. Let's put that in here. 341. And then I can display that if I... So you can see we've got FMS1 showing, which points to the waypoint FMS1 wants to go to. It's not actually that useful. And we've got VOR2 showing. So let's put this NDB over here as 341 as well. And then with these needles down here, you can see I can choose FMS1, AUX1, ADF1. But what I can't have is FMS1 and ADF1. But I can have FMS1 and ADF2. So there we go, ADF2, which as we get closer will point to that Echo Delta November. Hold format. Just embarrassing myself now. Oh, there you go. You can ding the camera crew like that. Didn't need to use that overhead one. That's the identifier for air traffic. Oh, I don't know if that works. I shouldn't have done that. That might have worked. Might get a question from air traffic. Format. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's a good one.
Jersey 294, you're leaving my airspace. Unicom 122 decimal 8.
1228 Jersey 294. Bye bye. Right, 1228. Good. So that's the plan. That's the approach. Haven't got much else to say. After landing, going to come off at Bravo. Taxi back up. Go and park somewhere over here. South apron. So next, altimeters we're going to set to QNH as we descend. We've done the brief. Cabin altitude controls are set for landing already. Ice protection not required. Although it will be required as we go through this. Below the FMS. Ah, okay. Aha. Ah, there we go. That's it. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Downrange. Really appreciate it. And Bread Live. Thank you all. You all knew how to do that. Harvey's letting us go past. So, yeah. Formats. I've been pressing it. I haven't even used it actually. But if you hold it down, it goes from the sort of normal one, and you can hold it down and you just get it up with the ILS course bar, and then you can press it to go to plan. But there you go. And up here, now we can change the course in the background. Yeah, I knew there was a way. Brilliant. Well remembered, or well known. Yeah, I think that I did remind that controller lower V. Yeah. So hold down format, then you can adjust the course without that silly thing I did where I lost all my navigation. Ridiculous. Right, hydraulic systems, we've got the park brake pressure, then we've got the two normal systems, there's a third backup system for the elevator, and then there's a PTU that can transfer one way, a standby hide press for the other. So in the Airbus, the power transfer unit allows us, if we lose pressure from one hydraulic system, say an engine failure, because we lose that pump, then we can use the other system to power it, and vice versa. However, in the Dash 8, the PTU only works one way, so when we turn it on, it's useful in one direction only. So you have a backup pump for the second system. I don't think there's any hydraulic schematics we can look at though. Yeah. So that's why you have both. So they're both sort of backups for their own hydraulic system. Why the PTU can't go both ways, I do not know. Excellent. We have an approach controller. Thanks, Lauren V. Yeah, excellent. Sorry, I'm just looking around, trying to remember things. Normal sort of clock here, nothing exciting to report there. That's that easy. So for the approach, for the whole descent, I'm at risk of forgetting outsell because it was so crucial, and I've just not used it for years. So that's where you have to, every time we set an altitude, make sure we've pressed outsell and check it. Don't press it every time, because if you press it twice, it disappears. You just got to look and make sure your FMA's there. And then we're going to just arm approach and we get to it and fly the ILS. It's pretty straightforward, really. I'm assuming at some point though we'll have to change the nav source over when we get onto vectors. Thanks for the follow. Red says, do you know how the elapsed timer works on the Q400? Can't figure it out myself, or is Majestic just broken? Oh. No, I don't know. No. I don't know whether that's a flight timer or what it does. Yeah, I can't remember. It's the only analog instrument in the airplane. It's a very modern flight deck, you know, it's all EFIS. These are nice big screens. And the clock is the only sort of analog thing in it. I suppose, don't look at the overhead panel, that slightly spoils it. This lighting, I think, is obviously coming from the, yeah, the sun's just gone behind. So I'm gonna now talk about my only complaint, and it's not a big one, but this is the default view, and even if you zoom in, the screens on the dash are very big, and they're very clear. They're quite low down by your feet, but I just think, considering how crisp everything is, look at the text over here, barrow set, push to standard. I know the PFD, it's hard to have a high resolution display because it's, you know, got to be a performance drain, I'm assuming. Thanks, Space, for the follow. But it's just slightly too blurry. I don't quite understand why. I'd love to see this just crispened up a little bit. And the reason I say that is that the most used switch on the dash is the rudder trim. Down here. This used to wear out of paint all the time. You're constantly adjusting it, maybe not quite that much. I might try and set it to a lower amount. But yeah, you're constantly using it because as you change power, the propellers are spinning in the same direction. The down-going propeller blade, as you look forward, I think it's going that way, can't remember. Anyway, the down-going blade produces more thrust. So if you look from the top down of the airplane, that means one side of the propeller blade is producing more thrust than the other. Don't ask me why. It's one of the strangest phenomenon in propeller airplanes. Asymmetric thrust. So that means the airplane gets a bit of yaw. If you add more power, it will yaw slightly. So the more power you add, it will yaw to the left, meaning you need a bit of right. I think that's the right way round. I think that's the right way round. I can't quite fully remember. So I'm assuming that means they're spinning to the right, clockwise from the back. Anyway, the point is, you're constantly having to, every time you change the power, if I move the power levers like that, I would then need to retrim the airplane with a little bit of left rudder as I move it back. Now, to do that, you need to see this slip indicator very clearly. Very clearly. And it's just slightly blurry, slightly hard to read. And it's the only thing I'd change, or I would like to see improved. Just it'd be great if this could just be a little bit higher resolution and a little bit clearer. Now, if that's possible, I don't know. That's very easy for me to say, and I'm sure it's a complete nightmare to actually try and implement. So there you go. But that's the only thing I'd say that I've spotted. Lauren says, love this queue. We've got Alpaca, Airbus, Royal Air Maroc 73, Easy Airbus, then 3 dashes for arriving at Edinburgh. Excellent. TB Palm says, the Dash Q400 in my company has digital. Oh, there you go. I haven't seen that. Digital clock as well. Excellent. Jonathan Fisher, thank you so much. Incredibly generous $30 super chat. Really appreciate it, Jonathan. Jonathan says, in the Toliss, there seems to be faults that don't trigger anything in the ECAM. Is this accurate? How do you handle this in real life? Thank you so much for that tip. That's incredibly generous, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the channel. I know you've supported us before, and that's very kind of you. Thanks so much for coming along today. So the Toliss being the Airbus, of course, that we are used to. So Jonathan is asking, there seem to be some faults that don't trigger anything in ECAM. Is this accurate? How do you handle it? There are some faults that don't trigger an ECAM. Yeah, if there's no ECAM procedure, it's very rare. But there's things like if your window, for example, starts sparking or something, that's a QRH procedure. So that we do, as Airbus pilots, you have to remember that there's a QRH with other procedures in. So if the Airbus hasn't sensed the fault, then chances are there's a QRH procedure for it. So that's basically it. We would use the paper checklist, Jonathan. Yeah, if there's an actual fault like a generator failure, the ECAM will know about it. It's just so inherently built into it. I've never heard of that happening where a fault that should have an ECAM doesn't. I'm sure it is possible, but I've never heard of it. So yeah, so if you're saying that it should have an ECAM, then yeah, I've never seen that. If it's because there isn't an ECAM for it, but it's just a separate fault, then we would use the paper checklists. Yeah. Yeah, thank you again for that donation. They're very kind, Jonathan. Really appreciate it. Jonathan says, I have had autopilot faults where the ND has failed. Yeah, so autopilot's interesting, but that shouldn't be an issue. That should, if the autopilot's broken, I'd expect an ECAM of some variety. The navigation display failing, though, screen could fail. Yeah, the screen could fail without an ECAM. But there is a paper checklist for dealing with failed screens, and I have indeed used it. So that would be what you do in that case, Jonathan. Yeah. Yeah, good question. Very good question. Right. Anyway, 220 knots. You'll notice that the pitch, even as we slow down a bit, is basically down at 0. Very flat cruising attitude with the wings as they are, just part of the design. How far away are we now from Edinburgh? 60 miles away, probably about 70 miles to run. We need about 75 on a 3 degrees, so really it's time to go down. We're on Unicom, so let's do it. Let's start off with the classic flight level 100s. Scroll, scroll, scroll. It does take ages. Something I do like about this sort of control panel is the 2 heading bugs. You get 2 of them. Only get 1 on the Airbus. Right, let's start down. That's still a flight level. So, descending. Wouldn't use VNAV typically. You can see it's not really shown on there. You can press VNAV in here and say I want to descend at... Oh, this is all coming back to me now. I want to descend at 2,000 feet per minute. No, got to type it in first. It's not coming back to me that word, is it? 2,000, enter. Message, top of descent alert. And top of descent is in 0.5 miles. And that's about a 3.7 degree descent. So let's do it. No, let's not. Let's do VS. Right. Outcell, already forgot it. There we go. And now what I used to do is put in a bit of a VS down. And now we have a VNAV bug, you see, because I told it a vertical speed to target. It doesn't think of it otherwise. So start down, take a bit of power off, and then a bit of left rudder trim would be needed and adjust the trim. Then a bit more VS, go for 1,000, a bit more power off, adjust the trim. Now it's hard to sense where that power is because you don't hear the RPM change, but it is changing. Alternatively, you could just go vertical speed 2,000 and idle. And sometimes you'd feel that happening if you're a passenger. And now you can see the target vertical speed, you can see the angle, and the deviation with 400 feet high. But, so this does work. It even tells you, look, in rev, to be at 20,000 feet, it's got the restrictions in, you need to do 2,100 feet per minute. So it's not terrible, but the problem with using it was, every now and then it would suddenly target a ridiculous vertical speed. Let's say you're getting really close, and it would suddenly start going to like 3,000, 4,000 feet per minute, which the Dash 8 couldn't handle. It would start to accelerate. If we wanted to go down faster, we could. We didn't use IS in the descent. I remember specifically not doing that. 1212.
On stand 8, we've got information Romeo.
So this would be more normal. A vertical speed, maybe a VNAV if you wanted to. Yeah, not IS, not particularly. Don't ask me why.
Clearance London Heathrow, Gotham 1 Charlie departure, squawk 7576, shuttle line 8, shuffle 9 Yankee. 7 runway 24, range.
Those spheres, Kenneth, this is for aligning your eyes, just like in the Dash, in the Airbus. So they should block out, and then you know you're in line. That's where your seating position should be. That's what they're for.
1012.
And you've got a little whiskey compass that's hidden away in the Airbus. Edinburgh, good evening. Jersey 294, descending flight level 100 to INREV. We are a Dash 8 Delta with information Romeo.
Jersey 294 Edinburgh, hello, stop descent, flight level 200.
Stop descent flight level 200, Jersey 294. Right. Right, there's 200 there. I've disconnected the autopilot. I'm going to press Alt. Autopilot engage. LNAV out 200. It's going a bit low. And now we get that power on, because of course we must remember we have to do the power. Right, that was a bit unusual, but he wants us to stop right there.
9, report your indicated airspeed. You're going to have to increase that easy 6959 speed to 250 knots or greater.
There you go. They're trying to put that EasyJet ahead of us. So that's normal. That EasyJet's done a really nice job of. Vectors RLS 24, Jersey 294. Yeah, that EasyJet was very kindly slowing down for us, but controllers were always putting jets in front of us, and you could find yourself getting vectored all around while they put the jets ahead of you because they didn't want you to hold them up. So he obviously wants to get the jets in and then let the dashes come in afterwards, which makes sense.
Clear to land, Alpaca 7 Bravo Mike.
There you go, a little bit of right rudder needed. Now we've added power.
Please start your descent. Flight
That was ever so slightly up. As I said, yeah, not quite as clear as perhaps I'd like. Right, well now we're obviously getting quite high up. We're 6,000 feet above our original target. But no problem. Being high in the Dash 8 was really easy to fix. The trick is, unlike...
Jersey 294, descend flight level 100.
Descend flight level 100, Jersey 294. Unlike the
Shuttle 90 Yankee, stand 8, request push and start.
Airbus, where the trick is, at this point, you would speed up to get down. What I'm going to do is keep the speed back. So I'm going to bring the speed back now, put it on 100s, let the speed come back. Because obviously we're 40 miles, we need 60. We're not that high, but if we bring the power back, get the speed below sort of 210, it's amazing what you can do. Let's just go to idle. The only problem is they're not quite sitting idle.
294, speed 220 knots.
220 knots. Jersey 294. Ah,
695 knots speed.
that ruins it slightly.
220 knots or greater.
My big plan there, if you have a speed control, it doesn't really work, but 220 is good. If you're fast, the airplane starts to run away.
Easy 695,
So let's start with 2,200 feet per minute,
220
and the speed's right back.
or greater.
So although 2,200 feet per minute isn't a massive vertical speed, because we're going so slowly, it's actually quite a sharp angle. And if we wanted to go down a bit better, oh sorry, a bit quicker. So I've got these at idle. So that's 2,200 feet per minute, it's doing 203 knots. And now if I bring those condition levers all the way up to max, they spin faster. And what would happen, I don't know if it's modelled, is the airplane would start to slow down. It'd be like putting the brakes on and putting spoilers out. Don't think it's making too much difference though. But certainly in the real aircraft it was like, yeah, like standing on the brakes. Let's go back to 850. Just leave it as it is. Start winding the range. We have done... No, we haven't done altimeters yet. Okay.
I was on 737, turn left, heading 270 degrees, clear DLS.
Thanks, Rum and Franz, for the follows.
270 degrees.
Simon just landed in busy Munich. Excellent.
Alpaca 7 Bravo Mike 24.
Easiest close ahead. There we go. Makes sense.
Clear to land, Alpaca 7 Bravo Mike.
So there's the Alpaca landing.
Amazon 737, can I confirm it was turn left 270?
Affirm.
Yeah, that's quite a common view of the dash out the window. That sort of nose down, because it does descend quite steeply. Quite a steep angle. Thanks, Ram. Glad you enjoy them.
294, leave Tartan heading 020 degrees.
Leave Tartan heading 020 degrees, Jersey 294. 020, so makes sense. I think I can just put that there now, why not? Let's put 020. I don't know what will happen if I leave it. In the Airbus, if we leave it,
294, descend, flight level 90.
so if I were 90, Jersey 294. You'll see as well that we're, you know, our speed isn't increasing. 2,200 feet per minute at a speed of 200 knots is the Airbus wouldn't do that. It would be accelerating at this point. So in the Airbus, you'd have to pick up speed to get the aerodynamic drag. In the Dash, you get slower, get the torque back on the engines, and then it works better. It's just one of those funny things. You can go down at quite a sharp angle. That was 90, and we still have outsell. Good. We're at some point going to have to synchronize it to center fix for 2.4. Dougal says, done a number of tactical descents aboard the C-130 and the nose down is insane. There you go. Yeah, because in an Airbus you'd be at about 0 degrees pitch now, but we're almost at -5 and this isn't even that steep. You could easily do 2,500 feet per minute. No worries, Tom. Thanks for coming along. As Matthew says, the props make some nice drag devices. Good to see you, Matthew Presley, our resident CRJ pilot.
Alpaca 7 Bravo Mike, taxi stand 3 via Alpha and Echo.
Taxi stand 3.
Look at this, just diving down. No problem.
Edinburgh approach, very good evening. Air Baltic 1 Alpha, flight level 220, descending flight level 200.
Baltic 17 Alpha, Edinburgh radar vectors RS, runway 24, descend, flight level 210.
Descent level 210, vectoring, yeah.
There's a good question. What's the go-around procedure? So I've been trying to remember this. I think, I don't remember perfectly. Let's do 220 knots. We're going to have to add the power here. I think it's something along the lines of go around flap 15. A bit like the 7.3. So you go around and make sure the flaps are at 15, because from 35 that's no good. Then you'd climb, and then you'd press this little go around button, which will put it into go around mode. But the autopilot would disconnect when you press that, so you have to do it's a manual thing. The autopilot can't fly the go around. Then you would actually no, let's keep descending. Then you would need to make sure you press outsail and heading mode or whatever. God, I really don't remember. Yeah, it's funny, something like that. But in terms of power, you just go through to the rating detent. You don't need to go to emergency power. So there is a detent past that. You've got rating, and if you push it above that, you're into emergency power. But I don't think there are many situations where we'd use that. Certainly not normal procedures. There's 10,000 feet. There's the beat. Lights are on. We've definitely got outsail. So if I start fiddling with vertical speed now, within 1,000 to go, that's a very bad idea. You're at a huge risk of knocking out outsail, because if it goes into outstar at all, and then you fiddle with this wheel in the real aircraft, it would drop out outstar straight away, and that was the real problem, and you'd go sailing through your selected level. See you next time, Jan, then. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so that's the big problem with outsail. It was too easy to knock it offline. Outstar. Keep adding power. Oh, manual thrust. Good. At some point we're going to turn on these pumps and things, yeah, a bit later. Let's say, maybe the items are next, so let's say they're set. We've done the brief, done that, and don't need the ice protection. Next is approach. Altimeters, there we go. We'll do approach next. So we've got heading. I wonder what it's going to do. I think it's going to go into wings level. The Airbus reverts to heading and vertical speed quite often. You can't actually get it into pitch mode and so on, but the Dash likes to revert to sort of roll hold and pitch hold, which are really basic modes. Let's see what happens. So there's Tartan. It might just turn around and head back to Tartan. Or it's just heading away. No. Heading. Yeah, that's interesting. Didn't expect that one. Jamlin's working on liveries. Excellent. Matthew Presley says, about to say that the CRJ is the exact same way, forces you to hand.
294 runway 24, range 30 miles, descend to altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1012.
So altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1012, Jersey 294. Yeah, so there you go. So the CRJ forces you to do the go around manually, just like the Dash. Excellent. A similar sort of company, or the same company. So vertical speed would be quite normal. Outsail, don't forget outsail. Bring the power back. And set QNH of 1012. 1012. 1012. Good. Power coming back now. So you'll see, if I wanted to go, if I go direct to, let's do CI24, which is 24. Enter. It will do that, but it won't actually go into nav mode, so that's for us to deal with. As we go through flight level 80, you'll see this red bar suddenly drop down. So we could have done 270 knots in the descent, up until about 80 based on the flight level, and then suddenly this comes down to 245. I think it drops a bit lower in a second, which is a real problem. You could easily get yourself caught out with an overspeed, because you could be at 270 knots still. And the problem was, if you were already on QNH, this was based on standard, so it could happen earlier or later than you were expecting. Very, very easy to do and get wrong. There's those it's happened to and those it's going to happen to, sort of thing. Right, nav source for the RS. There we go. Keep the speed, 220 knots-ish. Very responsive power, one of the great things. Right, altimeters are set. Lights are as required. GPWS landing flap 15. Fuel transfer off. We didn't even get to talk about that today. So many things to talk about. Fuel pumps on. Yeah, I could talk all day about this airplane, it seems. Standby high. PTU control on. High pressure and quantity check. So that's all looking good. There's a standby pressure coming up. And the quantities are over there. Good for all three.
101, leave Tartan, heading 0.
Passenger signs. Oh, did we do that? Supplies a checklist. On. Caution warning lights check. Cabin. We'll set it secure. There we go. That's the approach checklist complete. Next is the landing.
Yankee, we are ready for departure. Shutdown Yankee, Roger, runway 24, surface interval 3 knots, clear takeoff.
I do have the Orbex scenery for Edinburgh, so it should look quite nice when we get over there. But this is all default scenery for X-Plane, just to make sure the frame rate stayed high. But I might try it out. There you go. For the go-around in the CRJ, as Matthew Presley says, you had to have a ridiculous number of call-outs and actions in a short time. Yeah, and it's exactly the same on the Dash. Loads of things had to happen. And you had to get outsell in because it wouldn't be there. I mean, all sorts. The Airbus is incredible. Even on single engine, it would just do it for you. Chief Sim Pilot, good to see you. Another streamer. Thanks for coming along. I hope you're doing very well.
Take 17 Alpha, leave Tartan, heading 020 degrees.
Would approach checklist be completed before initial approach checks? Usually. It depends, but yes. Approach checklist usually yes, because you'd probably be already on QNH. Right, we've got outsell, but let's bring that vertical speed right back. 500 feet per minute for now. Oh, did I miss that? No. So I'm going to keep 220 because we've got no problem. As I said, even if we get onto the ILS clean, we'll still manage to slow down enough. Flyboy, good to see you. I'm doing very well. Thanks for coming along.
294, speed 180 knots.
180 knots, Jersey 294. Fine. No speed bug to change it on. I just tried. I was moving the mouse. But, of course, that's not what we need. 180 knots. About 170 knots would be a minimum clean speed. Yeah. Oh, well, we won't worry too much about that. I think it's 170, 175. I can't remember exactly. There's that star. Speed's going to come rocketing back, so anticipate, get the power on. It's a strange feeling flying around, reacting to the autopilot with the thrust. You can be a little bit preemptive, but yeah, slightly different from manually flying it. 180 knots, power coming on. Sadly, you can't click on the screen and pop it out. I would have liked that as well. Maybe there's a way to do it, and I've not set it up right. That's out, 180 knots. So yeah, 180 knots clean, easy.
Turn left, heading 280 degrees, cleared ILS. When declaration, we'll establish the localizer T4 descend with the glide path.
Left heading 280 degrees, when established localizer runway 24 descend with the glide path, Jersey 294. So the reason he did that, he changed it because, get that power on for the turn.
Speed 180 not so great until... Speed 160 not so great.
It's because we're not actually at platform altitude, we're high, we're at 4,000 feet. If we were at 3,000 feet, he could have said cleared ILS, but in the UK they won't say cleared ILS when you're not.
Speed 160 knots to 4 dB.
160 to 4, Jersey 294. They won't say it. It's quite funny. It's a very UK thing. Right, arm approach, there's localizer and glide slope. 160 knots, so we're going below minimum clean, so we'll go to flat 5. There it goes. Going to get the first bit of drag out. Out they go, and you can hear them travelling. Right, this is about to be a glide slope from above, so we need further descent. Yeah, this hasn't quite worked.
Climb now, flight level 140, shuttle 90 Yankee.
Jersey 294, request further descent.
Jersey 294, descent to altitude 3,000 feet further on the glide path.
Descend 3,000 feet further with the glide, Jersey 294. Okay, there we go. So vertical speed 800, which will about follow the glide path, bringing the power back, keeping 160 knots, and now we've got a chance. Otherwise, it wasn't going to work. We'd be above the glide slope at this point. It can happen. There you go, lock star, glide slope star, or now captured. Going altitude 3,000 feet is in. Let me just check that is right. Not that one, that's the one. Climb straight ahead to 3,000. Perfect. Oh, minima. I never put the minima in, did I? 300. Let's do that. So that is down here. I think I can just turn it. DH2. Sorry. MD8. It's not right out. To 300. There it is.
runway 24, range 28.
Right, 160 knots, we're flat 5, heading down, looking good. It's 160 to 4, we're about 10 miles out, DME displayed down there. There's a line the heading bug in case we want to go around, because we'll put it into heading if we do go around. So just align it with where we're actually pointing to account for the wind in case we go around. A V-bar, oh, I don't know.
4,000 feet, 101
I haven't seen that option. I haven't seen that option. You can do hectopascals, barosync,
6959, runway 24,
but there may be more options.
variable 3 knots.
Oh, getting too fast.
Jersey 101, turn left.
Yeah, landing into the sun, that's the excuse, dash 8. So landing really hard because 5 degrees pitch we're going to run out of quite easily. We'll do our best. Oh, it's really running away. See this, yeah. You can get a bit more drag out of these propellers. There's the beep as we depart from our 3,000 feet. But yeah, it's 5 degrees of pitch. It's just there's not much room to flare. You leave the power where it is. There's a radio altimeter, which makes sense. Correct place, where we'd expect it, over the water. You would, yeah, you can add a bit of power if you need to, but that shouldn't be routine. If you add lots of power on a landing, that's not quite normal. If you can leave it, ideally, you can leave it exactly where it is, but you just got to do what you're going to do to address the descent, but don't go above 5 degrees pitch. Yeah, I don't know. I need to see what the weights do, the seasonal weights. Indeed, Poltergeist, yeah. Evening Aviation Forever, thanks for joining us. There you go. Suddenly lost the speed there. Suddenly gone low on the glide.
101, turn left, heading to 70 degrees, cleared ILS 24.
Left heading 270, cleared ILS 24, Jersey 101.
There you go. Back on the glide. Get that power back. Anyway, that's 4.5 miles. Close enough. So we go gear down. Flaps to 15. You hear the gear horn because I've done it too quickly, so it doesn't see the 3 greens. There you go. Now the gear horn goes away. Bring it back to idle now, and that's our landing flap. Now I'm going to press reduced MP. It says reduced MP landing, and if we do it quick enough, we can bring the condition levers up forward, and you'll notice that they stay at 850, which is what we want. I'm going to start bringing the power back. It's going to be about 25% on the torque, and we're going to put the bleeds to min, and that will get rid of the amber message. You saw it's amber because it's complaining. As the speed comes back now, the FO's arriving just at the wrong moment. Yeah, but this is going to be a challenge. I'm not going to expect too much here. I've got plenty of excuses. So about 25% of the torque, maybe a little bit more because we're quite heavy. And you'll see, there you go. Look, the pitch is at 4.5, almost 5 degrees already. Oh, sorry, we haven't got. It's still trying to land here. She chose the wrong time to arrive, really.
Edinburgh radar, good evening, sir. Your wings 9 and
So, landing checklist. Landing gear down 3 greens. Flaps set and 15. Condition levers max. Bleeds min. Flight attendants notified.
Jersey 294, T4, cleared to land services, variable 3 knots.
Good land 24, Jersey 294. Good.
6959, contact ground.
Okay.
2175.
That's it. Power's a little bit high. Let's bring it back to where it needs to be. Maybe about 29 because of our weight. Autopilot's off.
I'll take 17 Alpha, turn left, heading 3.
Taking a little bit of rudder trim.
180 knots.
330 degrees, 180 knots.
And there's just not a lot we can do. So having a couple of extra knots does help out.
Flight level 80, leave Tartan, heading 020 degrees.
That's a bit too much though. Oh, so...
50, 40, 30.
Euro wings 9364, vectors ILS runway.
There you go, just holding it there. Just holding it there. Can't do much else.
020 degrees.
There's touchdown. Bring it back. Get them into get the nose gear down. You can't put it into disc until the nose gear's down, so I've done that a little bit early. Oh, and there's the exit, so let's get on the brakes.
Shuttle 9 Yankee, Mother Unicom 122.8, bye-bye.
There we go. Right. What did that come out? Did that work out? That felt alright. It's just so restrictive. And we've made it. Let's get ourselves off the runway. We'll have a replay coming up later. Oh, I've missed the taxi light. That's something I did miss. Excellent. Oh, what a blast from the past. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. 1100 feet per minute yesterday at Simmer. Yeah. I can believe it. Easily done.
A320 NEO.
AC455 says the prop sound on landing is spot on. Yeah, it's great. The only thing is, I've noticed when you land, the props rev up to about, so they basically overspeed, which they shouldn't do. They should just go from 850 back to like 660. You just hear them do the noise, so that they've got the sounds perfect. I don't think they should be speeding up as much. You might see it that they went red on the landing there. But there we go. Right, let's head back up the road. Yes, just so, yeah. So I kept power on there. I almost added a bit, but then we 1175 Jersey 294 1175. But if you add power, we were already a bit fast, so it wasn't really the right thing to do. Let's just get rid of these big lights and get rid of these beacon to red. Edinburgh ground, good evening, Jersey 294.
Jersey 294, good evening, Edinburgh ground. Taxi stand 2 seconds. Taxi stand 26 via Alpha Lima and Golf.
Alpha Lima Golf stand 26, Jersey 294. Thank you very much. Good, right. Thanks, Game Chief, for the subscription. Thank you everyone for the subscriptions there. I know I've missed a few more. Yeah, so Alpha,
Good evening, Edinburgh ground, readability is 5x5.
Lima, Golf. Oh, I haven't got the parking chart up. Parking stands. Looking for 26. 26 is in the middle. Perfect. Right, so those are off. That light's on. What else can we do? Main bus light can go to tie. Don't ask me why. Pitot heats can come off, and the windshield heat can go off. APU we can start. They probably could do that later. Flaps can come in. Control lock can go on. Let's get that started. Bleeds can go or stay on min, I suppose. Don't know why you'd fiddle with that now. Try and keep it on the runway. Sorry, on the taxiway. Yeah, let's see how we've done. It's quite a long after landing flow. I do remember that. Control lock is on. Transponder. Oh yeah, transponder to standby. Yeah, we will have a replay of that one. Don't you worry. Isn't 25% a bit too much for flat 15? I think. Oh, I can't remember the numbers. I did have some sort of datum numbers in my head, but I ended up needing a bit more than that. Oh, this can go to taxi. That's another one. There you go. Flaps are at 0. Oh, there's loads to do. Tank pumps off. You see what I mean? There are just loads of procedures in this airplane. Radar was already off. Yaw damper can go off. Spoilers to taxi. Anti-collision to red. Lights. Pitot static. Windshield heat. Window heat. Ice protection. Bus tie. Yep. APU starting. Pleader 1 and 2 as required. Right, after landing is done. Next will be the shutdown. Excellent. Harvey says, look behind you. There we go. We'll get ourselves out of the way. So we're going to go Lima and then Golf. Right. Generator on, I suppose? Seems reasonable. Streamlabs is having a bit of an issue, I think. Valerie says, I think 25% should be the flat for flat 35. Yeah, maybe. I can't remember my datums. Lauren B finally got the cup of tea. Excellent. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it. We're going to use this airplane a lot on this channel. I can tell you that now. I've really enjoyed reliving it, as you can probably tell. And it's great to... If I press standby, that'll get to those. There we go. There's a lot we need to do with it. We need to get used to non-precisions. We can do single engine taxi. We can look at some of the failures because they've modelled so many. It's a real shame not to. So yeah, it's definitely something we're going to see more of because it's just such a good model. John's introducing anyone in the beanie as well. I had those last stream, but I don't have any today. But I can smell dinner cooking, which is a really good news. I'm very happy about that. Juicer says, so the typical retard at 30 feet approach doesn't work. It flattens the props. Yeah, so you do not land at idle. You leave the power where it is, flat 15. Flat 35, you would actually reduce the power a bit to make sure you can get the nose up so you don't what's called wheelbarrow, where you don't land on the nose gear. So we've got to do flap 35 landings and see what that's all about. There's just so much to talk about. Yeah, so much. Unbelievable. AC455 says tons of real Dash 8 flights in Canada if you want to fly somewhere new. Yeah, we should do that. The Dash 8's been in lots of great places, so we will definitely start taking it around the world. And it's an airplane I don't know how confident I am with it. It's actually really high workload for streaming. With that's my excuses. But with the manual thrust, I'm final there, trying to do the manual thrust and looking at the checklist and everything else. That's not easy. So that's definitely something we'll need to consider. But it can do, you can do RNAVs and so on. Obviously, it does have a VNAV mode. It's a 340. Excellent. Someone's flying their Toliss 340 then, I imagine. That's cool. And we're looking for stand 26, so we will park up and we'll get a full replay. James says, how many sketchy crosswind landings did you have in flying this? Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. Loads and loads of crosswind landings. And this thing can handle a crosswind, but it does get blown around a lot. It's hard work for the pilots. They do work hard, obviously with the manual thrust and everything. Baldo says, the trim seems to be quite off, like a lot of nose up for a normal after landing setup. Interesting, yeah. Yeah, okay, yep, interesting. I feel like the power would have been 25 if we were 25 tons for landing, and 35 if we were doing a flat 35 landing, but maybe it should have been 15 and 25. Maybe that's where I'm getting confused for the torque. Yeah, I just don't remember well enough. I'll have to start asking some people.
Ground Jersey 101, just received the contact.
Jersey 101, apologies.
Interesting, but thanks for watching, Baldo, and glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, no worries.
What about doing the Norwegian milk run with Widow? Oh yeah, Simon C, that could be a good idea. Yeah. Right, parking up, stand 26.
November 840, X-ray.
Tax slide off.
Hey, firm, we're ready.
You don't really need asymmetric thrust or anything in the Dash. It's very manoeuvrable because it doesn't run away on you, so you don't find yourself slipping around as much as you might on the Airbus if you're not careful. John says the flight school I'm looking at is in Scotland. They said to me, if you train here, you'll never be scared of a crosswind. There you go. Exactly. Right, shutdown checks.
Cleared to leave the control zone to the west, not above 2,000 feet.
We'll do that when we're stopped.
November 842,
Now,
read back correct.
where do you put it to put the line? Let's see. It does have a bit of nose wheel steering on the rudder, just like most. By the way, let's have a look at that rudder, just to show how big it is. It's a big chunk of metal. Is it doing the double turn? Could be. Yeah, it's a big old thing.
Ground, November 842, X-ray ready for taxi.
November 842, X-ray, do you need
Right,
back?
brake set, which is on.
No.
Let's do this then. So, tax slide off, emergency brake on, standby high P2 control, norm, maybe should have done it after part, power levers disc, condition lever start feather. So, you bring these now
One via Golf Lima Alpha, November 842,
all
X-ray.
the way back to start feather. And this is what you see when dashes park up and they go, and they sit there like this. Because the engines now need to cool down a little bit. You have to run them here for a certain amount of time. Thanks, E-Boss. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming along. And yeah, chilled stream, that's what we're aiming for. So they sit at start feather for a little bit of time. Now this isn't quite, I don't remember, I think this is different to the procedures I used to use. You certainly wouldn't let the passengers walk around. What used to happen was the passengers would now get up thinking we'd stopped. But of course, the engines are still running, so we didn't really want that. Oh, there's a clicker. So the clicker's running. I'm moving the trim back to the takeoff position. And if you do it for long enough, it will start clicking like that. So great detail. And here's the landing page. So this was the page. You know, earlier I said that messages disappear after landing. Once I get rid of this landing page, I can't get it back again. I lose these times. So you don't want to press anything and accidentally get rid of that because you had to record all that for your airline. Obviously, most of us won't be doing that in FlyJSim land, but there you go. So now they've been running for long enough and we've definitely got the generator available. I'm going to bring these back to fuel off and we'll actually shut down. Now I'll turn the passenger signs off. There we go. Once they've spun down enough, give them a few RPMs. So passenger signs off, nose wheel steering off, radar is off, anti-skid can go off, or does it say as required? As required, we'll leave it on. Bleed at 1 or 2 minutes off. AP GPU, emergency lights. Oh, well, that's the whole shutdown basically. Yeah, there you go. Condition lever is 30 seconds. Fuel off. Lights battery master as required. So we'll get the beacon off. And you hear all that dinging and warnings, but it doesn't tell you what they are. They're just, every time one appears up here, it dings at you again. So what have I got? It's fuselage doors, lo and behold. The one you're going to hear over and over again. Now I love that FlyJSim have that modelled where it does it automatically. So let's do our old trick. System, doors, system, and there we go. They've opened up, but you are constantly hitting these, which is why the paint's worn away just beneath it. Richard says, I'm on ground on FlyJSim. Wonder why there was so much traffic coming in tonight. Great stream. Thanks, Richard. Glad you, well, thanks for looking after us. Really, really appreciate it. Major says, Q400 ideal for hopping around the Mediterranean. Yeah, it could be good, couldn't it? Pete White didn't beat us to Edinburgh. No, indeed. Yeah, so amazing add-on. Let's disconnect from FlyJSim. It's time to consider the replay. But there you go. Great work by FlyJSim. Absolutely love it. It's amazing. It's an amazing representation. It looks amazing. Like it visually is just stunning, and it's got all the systems, all the right noises. The noises are unbelievably good. And let's jump into the replay. Got to be done. I think we should just about be all right with that. I don't think we struck the tail. It does actually. The real aircraft has a sensor. By the way, the X-Plane replay system continues to be the dream. It's just so good. Right. So let's see how close the tail was. There we go. So we did use up a lot of runway. It wasn't the most perfect technique ever. Yeah, just sunk on. It doesn't look that great, but it's the best you can hope for, really. If you draw it out too long, you end up with a bit of a thud. And now actually you can see me lowering the nose there at the end, just as I panicked. Well, not panicked, but as I realised the end of the touchdown zone, it's like, right, time to get it on the ground. So down we go. Excellent. Let's do the excellent runway view. Oh, that's quite nice, actually. Yeah, what a beauty. We will do outro music, don't you worry. Aviation forever. Into the flare. See, flare just a bit too high. I definitely flared too high. Found ourselves floating along. So that's the lesson for next time. Flare a bit lower. Dunk. But that's fine. You've seen plenty of dash landings that look similar to that. Could have got a bit more drift off. Something the real aircraft does, and I don't know if it's showing up here. Let's see. It had a habit of, you'd land, and the shock absorbers wouldn't absorb any of the shock. What they would do, and if you've been on the dash, you might have felt it. Yeah, so see how they compress. So that's what you'd think they'd do. But the real aircraft had a habit of what would actually happen is, as you touch down, they wouldn't really compress. They would just stay rigid. Then the ground spoilers would come up, and then they'd compress. So that's why the Dash 8s rattle in quite often. They're really, really hard to get a smooth feeling landing. The vertical speed we talked about isn't the end of the world. And it's certainly, you could have a high vertical speed, but a relatively smooth feeling landing, depending on how you landed and how flat you were and so on. But the Dash 8 was really prone to feeling rough. Even though the vertical speed and G-force was all fine, but it could just feel really rattly. It's also very light, and remember, light airplanes don't feel so nice when you land. So if you're a passenger on a Dash 8, don't be too harsh on the pilots. The aircraft is really, really hard. There's no doubt about it. And we'll talk about that maybe in other streams, because I could talk about it all day, the excuses that we like to make on the Dash. So let's go for, what's the better view for landing? Probably the gear view. So we'll rewind. Time for the replay. And bottom for my boys tipped $5. I'm really sorry I missed that. Thank you so much. Really very kind, and said good stuff, man. Really appreciate it, bottom for my boys. Thanks so much. Thanks for your kind donation. Thanks for coming along today. Right, this is actually let's have the gear out. There it is. We need to be a bit closer because it was going to be quite a slow final approach. Simon C says, well, who even flies a Dash 8 to expect a soft landing? Exactly. Hope that's a bit too far. Goodness me. Sorry, we're going to go back and forward a bit here. And I'm going to play the outro music. I'm going to say thank you to FlyJSim for making such a great aeroplane. By the way, I did buy this with my money. It's not been sent over. So these are all my genuine thoughts. I've got no association at all. So yeah, it's just excellent. And we talked about a few of the little details throughout it. Glad you enjoyed it, Carl. Thanks so much. And what we'll do then is there'll be more. Don't worry, there'll be more videos of this to come, no doubt. So I'm going to say, as usual, thank you so much to the moderators for keeping us safe on Twitch and YouTube. Thank you to all of you for chatting away. Thank you for those who've just watched along at home. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the questions, the very kind donations, of course, I really appreciate. And there'll be more videos. I did put a video up on the channel already of this, just for those who weren't going to make the stream. But you might find me repeating myself in that one a bit, but you might choose to watch that as well. And there'll be more to come. It's just great fun. Looking forward to doing more things with this. It's just a lovely add-on, and a great piece of history for me. So we'll say, let's get back to our view. Yeah, thanks for watching. Please keep safe and well. Bye bye.